They just came on now. Let's try get closer to the stage. Sorry. Excuse me. Hi there. Thanks a million.
Do you want to go on my shoulders?
What?
Sorry. Do you want to go on my shoulders?
Yeah, that'd be unreal. Thanks. Wow.
3 celebrates connections made by music this summer. Find out more at 3.ie/music.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a new word balloon, but it's word balloon unconventional. It's John Suntress, and this is kind of a virtue con that I am doing during the week of San Diego. You know, I'm not going to be there this year. Maybe some of you are not going to be there this year, and I wanted to give you that convention feel. And, you know, I love San Diego week, whether I'm going or not. I've gone the last 9 years. Sometimes, as I've said, when I'm not able to go, I feel like a kid who's got a broken leg and he's up in his bedroom watching everybody play on the street. You might hear me say that a couple times this week in some of my interviews. I can't remember if I did or not. But I wanted to do a series of interviews that kind of reflect the panels that I love at San Diego. In many cases, our guests will be promoting their panels this week at San Diego, so it's kind of a dual purpose. If you're going to the show, you might want to check these panels out. And if you're not going to the show, you're still going to enjoy these conversations. First up, you always have to go see a comic book legend at a big convention. And we start things off with a great comic legend, the great Don Mcgregor, who did so much for Black Panther, and then in the 80s black and white boom, great books like Detective Inc. with Marshall Rodgers, SABLE with Paul Gulacy. Our friend Ed Cato, the man behind Captain Action these days, moderated a panel with Don interviewing him. This was back in June, and this literally will be the only convention panel this week during Word Balloon Unconventional. Then I honor the small press world with Jason Inman, our buddy, who used to do video for DC All Access, hosts the wonderful podcast Geeek History Lesson. He and his partner, Ashley Robinson, show up a lot on Collider Video on YouTube. Well, Jason and Ashley also co-created Jupiter Jet, a really fun Rocketeer-style all-ages adventure set in the 1930s with a twist. And I'll let Jason talk about that, but the trade is out from Action Lab. We have a great geek conversation, not only about that, but, you know, we get into our usual pop culture stuff, things we're liking that are streaming, movie talk as well. So Don Mcgregor and Jason Inman for this episode of Word Balloon Unconventional. Word Balloon, of course, is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much, League, for your wonderful support via Patreon. Got a few more patrons this past weekend, and truly, I thank you for your support. Word Balloon is free. It'll always be free. But if you like what you hear, do you think it's worth $1 a month? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month? I try to give you the best content as far as fun interviews as we get inside the minds of some of our favorite creators and interesting people from the world of pop culture. So if you're interested and want to help out and subscribe to Word Balloon, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon, or you can go to the front page of wordballoon.com and just click on the Patreon ad. But thank you very much for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. All right, before we get to Jason Inman, we're going to start things off with Don Mcgregor, again, one of the great creative voices of Marvel, and then became one of the great creator-owned geniuses back in the 80s with books like Detective Inc. and also SABLE. My buddy Ed Cato interviewed Don just a month ago, and this was a great conversation. And I also want to point out Don will be one of the guests at Terrificon next month in Mohegan Sun, at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be moderating a Black Panther panel with Don, also Christopher Priest, Afua Richardson, and many other interesting creators. I can't wait. So let's tease you with what you're going to get next month at Terrificon with this great convention panel with Ed Cato and Don Mcgregor. Here they are now on Word Balloon.
Great to be here. My name's Ed Cato. We're at Finger Lakes Comic-Con. I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing legendary writer Don Mcgregor. Don, good to see you.
Legendary.
Yeah. Capital L,
Don't they say that
legendary.
about people that are dead?
No. We say that about those we care about.
I didn't say a legend looking for a gig, but I'm not really looking for a gig.
No,
I don't care now.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
You're past that? Oh, boy. Well,
I actually about the same. I only want to do what I want to do.
Yes. Isn't that the way you've always run your career?
More or less,
though,
yes,
Don?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes at great cost.
Yeah. Well, we're so excited to have you here. We're going to go as this special Word Balloon podcast, and would love to talk to you about some of the things in your career and some of your thoughts about currently what you're seeing going on in fandom, and especially your reaction to some of the pop culture things that you had such a inspirational and creative start for.
Hold on, I'm going to get serious here.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in my serious mode.
Yes.
Give me a moment. I'm working on that. I'm totally focused now. I'm really serious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
What's your question?
Yeah. No.
Come on, don't keep me waiting here. Damn, these people out here, they're bored. The people are bored.
Yeah.
That little girl over there, she said to me, sit down. If you don't get to say cooking, I'm leaving.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Yeah, right there. He said, see, you hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Insurrection in the audience.
Yes. Well,
And I love you. I love you, Ed. I love you.
Don, we're 90 seconds in. I've totally lost control of the interview. I'm not surprised.
You weren't going to have control.
I'm not going to have
Who
control.
said?
Oh my goodness,
God.
Don. Well, we're glad to have you here. Of course, first thing that we wanted to speak to you about is you've been in this business for quite a while. Recently, you've seen a big movie based on a lot of the thoughts, creations, and ideas that you started, the Black Panther movie. And I'd love to have an open-ended question to ask you a little bit about what you think about that and what your experience has been like.
Well, what my experience has been like with the movie?
With the Black Panther movie.
I think they did a really great job with it.
Yeah.
I've seen earlier versions they were going to do the Black Panther in the 1980s and 1990s when there were proposals for people who wanted to make a Black Panther movie. And all of you out there, if you like the movie that's out there now, be glad they waited.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not making this up. The plot proposal for one of the movies, I think Dwayne Turner showed it to me back in the time that we were doing Panther's Prey.
Yeah.
And this is what Hollywood would buy for a black character in the 1990s or late 80s. The Black Panther was a street sweeper in Harlem.
What?
And he has amnesia. He doesn't know that he's a king.
Oh.
And but he has the abilities of a cat. But he's like a cat. Supposedly, according to this proposal, cats don't like to bathe, so he never washes. He doesn't bathe because he dislikes water.
Yeah.
And this was going to be the Black Panther movie. That's the Black Panther movie they thought they could sell. I like her. See, she's a good audience. Unlike the rest of the show's for you. You're prettier than all the rest of them, so that's the other thing.
Yes.
I know you are. And I'm sorry. I love you dearly, but really, you're not her.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, Don has quite the reputation of a charmer. Some folks call him the most romantic guy in comics. This is Don. Yes.
Chris in my life, I've been shy of a woman all my life.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just wish I would get over it. And I'm going to try that soon.
Yeah, I haven't seen evidence of that, but yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So that 1990s Panther treatment never happened.
No, thank God. But A&M Records also wanted to do a Panther movie.
Oh, really?
And whenever you're dealing with Hollywood, you have to understand what it is they really want.
Yes.
In the beginning, they don't. No, but you have to understand what it is they want you to give them. Because what they're telling you is not what they really want. For instance, I'm going to A&M Records. Terry Cavanaugh was the editor for Panther's Play. And so we're getting contacted by A&M Records. I was interested in doing a Panther movie.
Yeah.
So I go over. I had 2 or 3 meetings with the woman who wanted to do this. And, we really want to do the Black Panther. And, you're the guy that's writing it right now. And we want, you to help us put it together. And so we had like 2 or 3 meetings. Yeah. And she was really pushing to have this done. And about that time, John Singleton ended up on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing a Black Panther hat with Dwayne Turner artwork from our book.
Oh, yeah.
On it. Now, on those talk shows, nothing like that happens by accident.
Right.
And that's because John really wanted to do a Black Panther movie.
Yeah. Wow.
So he had a separate one going on.
Yeah.
And there were different people. But what did A&M Records, why did they really want to do, they basically do records, why did they really want to do a Black Panther movie? It finally came out, Janet Jackson sings for A&M Records. They were looking for a film property for Janet Jackson. Monica Lynn is a black singer. So really, the thrust that they really wanted was a vehicle for Janet Jackson.
Wow.
Now, you don't learn that until you're like 5 meetings down, in 2 or 3 months of meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I see what this is really all about.
Oh,
So that's what I mean, where you don't... You're trying to piece together what is it that these people really want and what do they really want you to do.
Yeah. Right,
and they will continually change their mind with the weather, whatever they think is popular at the moment.
Yeah.
I do a character called Saber.
Yes.
And there's been interest in doing Saber as a movie upon occasion. Part of the problem with doing Saber as a movie is that at its core is a love story and is highly sexual between a black man and a white woman.
Yes.
And it was controversial in 1976, and it's still, while it's not as dicey as it was, it being what Saber is, because it's got gay characters, it's got transsexuals.
Right.
That time is caught up with it's like perfect for this.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about film, I think HBO or Showtime or something probably handled a lot better. But I think at that time, there was, there were real problems getting Saber put through. But there was an agent that was interested in doing Saber. And Mike Grella told me, this guy, he gets it down. He works in film, and he understands comics. So I'm meeting with the agent, and the agent says to me, well, Don, I want to do your young Saber. I want to, and do this franchise.
The adventures before Saber in the comics.
Because in the comics, he's already pretty much established. He's like in his early 20s, early to mid 20s. So he's already, pretty much an established character. But there's a lot of background that I had not yet. Sometimes I would go and do flashbacks in the books, and I intended over time to keep going back, and we would find out why does Midnight Storm really? Why is she so angry with Saber?
Right.
Why does she hate him?
Right.
Or why? How did Melissa and Saber first meet?
Yeah.
And all these different characters. And so I intended to handle it. I said, well, I could do Young Saber would just take all those origin stories, put them in one book, and the audience will be able to see it. And it'll be like how all these characters got together and set up stuff for the books. It wasn't going to violate anything that was in the series, and we'd have a new series to do. And I could rent it easily. So I started working on Young Saber.
Yeah. Now, what year would this have been? This is 80s, 90s, something?
No, this is later. This is later. I don't know, in the 2000s.
Oh, 2000s, yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. This is exactly what goes on with Bo Smith's Winona Earp property, right? So it has a property, and the filmed version is the earlier version.
So, anyway, I'm working on Young Saber, and then, I don't know, apparently Sam Jackson was looking for a franchise.
Oh.
And everybody wants to be in a superhero franchise. So the agent comes and said, hey, Sam Jackson's interested in doing a franchise. Let's do this for Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
I said, Sam Jackson can't play Young Saber. He can play Old Saber.
Right.
You want to do but that's not the same. He's not the same person. When he's in his teens, when he's on flying skateboards, mooning the politicians because he thinks they can take a joke.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, he's just a young guy, yanking the strings of the politicians, not realizing they're going to take it really serious. And the more publicity that he gets, the more he becomes known, the more they want him out of the way, because he's a rebel. He doesn't fit in with it, and he's making fun of their institutions.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more. The government is becoming more and more severe in controlling the public.
Yeah.
And when we finally do the second storyline with Joyful Slaughter,
right?
Who, by the way, is my favorite villain that I've ever created.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because Joyful's running on the strict death penalty platform for president.
Yeah.
And he's going to execute Saber over Old Faithful and spread it and show it all over the country, all over the world. And look, I'm executing people over over Old Faithful. Every hour we will put another body on top of Old Faithful, and it'll draw the tourists in as well. And I'm thinking I'm being outrageous, and I swear to God, the fucking world is catching up with me. Please.
Yeah, right. Saber is.
By the way, did I just curse on it? Because that just
you can curse on this show.
Oh, thank God.
Yes. No, that's fine. Yeah.
You're my permission.
Yeah. So Saber is post-apocalyptic.
Thank God the little girls left.
Yes, but you feel almost as caught up. The Joyful Slaughter is almost like a current politician in many ways, right?
Obviously, that story would fit in so well right now. And when they actually come in to basically stamp out the voices that are, because Saber's defending this settlement that's been based around Disney World. Disney World is collapsed, and the bad guys have taken it over.
Right.
And so that's their headquarters. Oh, Disney will love me for that.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, Saber was an extension from War of the Worlds.
Yes.
But I could take the Martians out, and with Saber, it was to me, it was purer because it's just a guy who becomes this target for larger organizations. And really, all he wants to do as he gets older, he wants to be with a woman he loves.
Yes.
He wants to raise a family. He wants to keep his word and his word of honor.
Mm-hmm. Part of the story is a love story about two people trying to keep that love alive in a world that's gone crazy. Yeah, sure. I was always impressed how Saber started with very much a romantic story, full of love and passion, and quickly progressed into real world things like being a father and keeping up with everything.
That became a really big problem because in 1976 when I wrote it, I didn't see print till 78 because the artist held it up for 2 years, and he did not want Melissa pregnant.
Yeah.
And we started to refuse to finish drawing the book. This is like the difference in time periods in pop culture.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to survive economically because I'm now Marvel and I have fought bitterly over the Black Panther.
Yes.
And doing the Ku Klux Klan material, which was my total. The people have said, "Did that hurt your career at Marvel? You mean outside of killing it?"
Yeah. There's always a story floating
Not
around.
That's the way they would phrase it, but
yeah. The story always was that they said you need to put more white people into Black Panther, and you said, "Sure, I got a story for you."
no. I mean, I literally every issue of Panther's Rage, just about one of the main things they continually wanted white people, and it was their. I said, "It's your mythology. You said Wakanda is a super secret society. Nobody knows where it is. They can't find it. They've got the technology to keep people out." Now, remember, maybe only 6 to 8 stories have been done set in Wakanda at that time frame. And none of it had really gone outside the explored Wakanda. So, I literally spent 3 months creating maps for Wakanda and all the different places that they were going to go.
Right.
I had to have that to do the storyline I wanted to do. I had to know it. You had to create the reality of the place so that when you got there, people say, "Oh," I think it makes it more real to them. Mm-hmm. And it really got to when I was doing conventions like this and meeting people at the, doing shows or with people coming up to the table asking questions, and there were a lot of things to get used to then. It was so popular when people would come up, and I think maybe if writers are often like second-class citizens.
Yeah, how's that?
It's a very art-oriented medium. People tend to talk about the artist, but writers seldom get the same kind of power that the artist.
Sure.
But at that time, I think both Steve Gerber and I had sort of this. Don Mcgregor books they weren't anybody but Don Mcgregor books. Just like
no.
Steve Gerber book wasn't anything but Steve.
Yeah, you had such a unique voice.
People would come up, and they had been following every book you've done for 1-2 years. So you're meeting people who feel they know you intimately. If you're writing personally, and in these books, they feel they know you.
Yes.
I would have people come up and tell me stuff that I probably wouldn't tell you that.
Yeah, right.
Although sometimes I've been on stage and go, "Oh my God, I didn't know I was going to get into this." And this story's got no good ending.
Yeah.
So in meeting the people that way, I mean, literally, sometimes they would say you really private and sometimes really painful stuff.
Yeah.
Because they related so much. But getting used to the fact that you had never met these people before, they're standing on that side of the table, and suddenly they're just pouring their lives out to you.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of your writing was very much full of a lot of passion and personal insights. It wasn't just a good guy hitting a bad guy or going on an adventure.
I would often try to tell the people, don't confuse the writer with the human being. The human being stumbles over his shoelaces.
Yeah.
Can't do hardly anything right. The writer tries to weed all that out. And tries to, get everything as close to what I hoped it could be and envisioned it.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not like daily life.
Yeah. One time, Nelson DeMille, the fiction writer, was speaking, and he said, someone said, "Boy, I love the way your character has all those quips, right off the cuff." He's like, "Yeah, it takes me 3 days to write each of those. It's not spontaneous in real life." Yeah. Let me touch on one thing with Sabre, Don. You talk about how it was a story of a man and a woman and the things that go on, but that series, which in many ways seems very short by today's standards, was just layered with so many characters. Every character with a clever name and with a rich backstory. Can you speak a little bit to the things you were trying to accomplish and the way you juggle all the different characters and what they mean and what they do?
Okay, let me just start and keep me on track.
That's quite a task.
I know. Yeah. I'll try to get back to it. But because one thing influences another. It isn't just one thing, and that's the reason that got done. When the Black Panther and Kill River were ending, and I was leaving Marvel Comics, and it was a pretty traumatic time in my life. I'd gone through a divorce by the time the books were ending. I was going to child custody courts to make sure I could see my daughter. Money was tight.
Sure.
And it was taking a long time to produce Sabre. When I first had the idea of doing, I felt like I was a slow writer, and I really wanted to have complete say over my books, and I wanted to own the characters. I was tired of writing everything where like the first issue of the Black Panther where I created Killmonger, did the match for Wakanda. I got paid $168 for it.
Yeah.
They owned everything. And there were times where my wife and my kids had to do without things because I'm having trouble just getting through that time period.
Sure.
People don't understand the cost that can have on you and the scars and wounds that it can leave with.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, I want to do my own character, and I come up with Sabre, and that's all inspired by an Errol Flynn movie called The Seahawk.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm watching this movie one night, and I said, wait a minute. This should be about a black guy, not a white guy. He's a slave aboard a rowing ship, and then they take him to a plantation, and they're whipping him to get him to do work. Right. Wait a minute. And then he uses a rebellion.
Yeah.
I said, this should be, they've never done, a black character that's, this, I can't think of the term.
Yeah, well, he was so, charismatic, Errol Flynn's breakout role,
that's
of
the
course.
Kind of thing. I wanted to do that kind of character had never been done before.
Yeah.
Huh?
You sank the Black Rebellion in Puerto Rico, or?
No,
Haiti?
I can't think of the term right now, but at any rate, my thought was I want to do that kind of character, and I'd never seen a black character done that way. And I thought Sabre can be reflect on all the things about going on in society at the time that I saw, and then project it into the head.
At that time you were in New York.
But I was like, in the beginning, I really wanted to do a series called Ragamuffins about little kids growing up in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had that. I had that plan since before I was even working at Marvel Comics, probably before I was working at Warren. I wanted to do that series, but I realized I couldn't come off the superhero stuff and the science fiction stuff. People had already forgotten I had done all these horror stories for Warren. they knew me for the science fiction material, and I'm talking about, I think we could do a book for the comic book stores, because nobody had done this before.
Yeah.
People in the industry thought I was crazy. They said, yeah, Don, it's such a small percentage of our audience, the comic book stores can't support a book. I thought if you gave them a writer and an artist whose names they knew, and you gave them something they couldn't get anywhere else,
Yes.
that there was an audience there.
Yeah.
Did I know it for sure? No, how could I know it for sure?
Yeah.
I could be as crazy as they thought I was.
Yes.
On top of that, then people would say, well, Don, who's going to buy a book about a black guy with a lot of guns?
Yeah.
You know, and I hope somebody's out there is going to buy the book.
Yeah.
And so I said, I can't do ragamuffins first. They want people, and I wanted to do Detectives Incorporated because I love Private Eyes.
Yeah.
And I had done, my first comic was a 1969 edition of Detectives Incorporated.
With Alex.
First time I ever met Marshall Rodgers when I was working on staff at Marvel. They didn't give him work, but I said to Marshall, I got this series of mine to do of my own, and years later, of course, Marshall ended up drawing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I said, even the Private Eye thing, it's got to be a costumed hero. But I said to Dean, if I'm not going to break every rule in the book, and then Saber breaks every rule that you could do, you could never do Saber at DC or Marvel. They couldn't handle that material.
Now, was Dean the publisher of Eclipse who
Dean
partnered with you here?
I met Dean through the letters pages of the Black Panther Kill Everything. He was a big fan of the books, and then we got to be friends.
Yeah.
I met him at a convention, and at those days I was collecting 60mm films, and so he was probably over watching an old I Spy or something like that.
Yeah, I Spy was your
we were going out
favorite.
to dinner together, and I don't know, and I had shown him a drawing for Saber. And then Dean calls me like 2 nights later and said, Don, I want to do Saber. So what do you mean you want to do Saber? I want to publish Saber. So you don't publish comics. I said, yeah, but I want to start my own company. I said, well, I want all my rights. You got it, Don. And I want files. Nobody can change my copy but me.
Right.
Okay. I think I had a half dozen things I said to him, and then Dean said, he kept saying, yeah. I said, you better come on over. We better talk. It's 40 years later, more than 40. We're still best buddies. This is a business that gets great people apart, just like snapping somebody's spine. And we're still, I just got a phone call from Italy at my hotel yesterday.
Yes.
And that's, I just wrote a piece on him. Because I don't think people appreciate that Dean opened up this medium to do stories. I could never have done gay. I had gay characters planned for the Black Panther, but I could never have gotten them through. Getting the interracial kiss through at Marvel was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. And,
I think there's a story how you engineered that's been floating around a few years. Didn't you kind of, you knew the way Stan operated and somehow you pushed that interracial kiss through?
Well, again, pop culture was in a much different place.
Yes.
Now, at least publicly, it would want to appear that they're accepting of people of different persuasions, but in those days, not so much.
Yes.
If there was a problem with an all-black cast of characters in the Black Panther, I had in mind that I was going to take Camilla Frost and Mashula, and I was going to get them together as characters.
Yeah.
And every issue, there was a scene with them talking.
Yes.
And an artist to quit the book. I get called I was called in almost every book. Don, come into the office. And if they shut the door, oh, it's trouble. Yeah, it's trouble. I don't know what it is. What is it this time?
Yeah.
And I'm told the artist is going to quit the book. And what's if I'm doing the salt and pepper? That's their
euphemism for a
relationship. And I know it's too early. That if I tell them I am doing it, they're going to tell me no. And the problem is if they tell you no and you try to do it anyhow, you'll never get it into print.
Yeah.
And it's an open act of defiance.
Yes.
So then if I'm already on, their questionable list, I'm not going to get it through. You got to find, it's not enough to want to do it. how do I get it out so that you folks can see it? Mm-hmm. And it gets to be a reality in comics. So I kept baiting the readers so that the readers would start bugging me for, when are you going to let these two get together? Oh, yeah. But when I got asked by the editor if I was doing it, I didn't lie. I just said, well, and you have to put it in terms that you know they can understand. And at the time, Modesty Blaze was a very big comic strip produced in England with a female lead, and Willie Garvin is the guy who's like her sidekick.
Right.
And follows her around.
She's like a super spy.
Right. And it's a good series. It's great. Yeah. I met Peter O'Donnell, and I like the series a lot. So I said, well, it's just Modesty Blaze. It's just they're like fighting companions, that kind of thing. Yeah. And so I didn't deny I was going to take it there, and I just kept baiting it every issue. Oh, my God. Because they weren't reading, they didn't have time to read those books. Those books weren't important. Yeah. Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Thor, those books were important.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the only reason I was able to get to that point. And the readers would start saying, geez, Don, what are you doing? What's your problem? And so then then you have to follow protocol. Could I have just gone to Stan? Yes, I could have. But if I skip editorial just to go to Stan,
it's not going to be good.
That's the end of any kind of civility between people at all.
Yeah.
So I know I need to go through them. So then I have to go through editorial, saying I want a meeting with Stan. I want to talk about doing an interracial
kiss
in Killraven.
Yeah.
And so they set it up, and there's a meeting. There always has to be a meeting of these kind of things. And so I know Stan is concerned. Oh, well, I don't want the PTA in the South somewhere to see it. It could be a problem. People wouldn't want, but and can't she be green, Don? She's white. What can I tell you, Stan? It is. And so there's there's this hesitation being expressed. But I knew that Stan really did want Marvel to be first. He really, honestly and sincerely, he liked them to do stuff before DC would. Yeah. And to be honest, Marvel would normally do things. DC would follow later on.
Right.
So I said to Stan, well, Stan, I know you always wanted Marvel to be first doing these things, and I'll be honest with you, I'm hearing rumors that DC is going to do a romance comic, and they're going to have an interracial kiss in one of their romance comics. And I really hate to see DC do that. Oh, no, I don't want that, Don. I don't want that. So then they said, okay, you can do it. But the panel where they kiss has to be in knockout colors.
What's knockout colors, man?
In comics, that means like everybody would be in shades of blue.
Yeah.
So that nobody could take that page out of that panel and point at it and say, I guess that was their reasoning.
You mean like a newscaster in the South or something?
It's going to be in knockout colors. Now, I don't know what happened. I'm just a writer.
Yes.
What do I know? So I write the issue, and Greg Russell's drawing it, and I get called in the editor's office again. And then the door shuts. And then they open up the book, and they go, Don, look at this thing here. This panel, you get the kiss, and it's in full color. How did... It is? Seriously? Yeah, look, it's right here. Look, how'd that happen? Wow. Well, it doesn't look that bad. It looks pretty good to me. Now, the bottom line to all of that story is the sky did not fall in on their heads. The world did not end, and comics opened up so that it was going to be less of a struggle. If you wanted to do something more, you could start to deal with it. It was going to be easier for the next people that wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's always been.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now it seems like, and this is from speaking with you just the other day too, that a lot of your tolerance and comfortableness with black folks and white folks doing things together, either a relationship or friendships, came from the I Spy, which you hold in high regard. And that was
you can find it on my website. I know there's a piece. There's like 5 pieces on I Spy. One's called Love It for a Sight.
Yes.
I think the first time I saw Culp and Cosby together, it didn't really have to do with the fact that Robert Culp was white and Bill Cosby was black. I mean, that obviously was history making.
Yes.
It was the relationship between these two guys. And the easy chemistry between them. I like Robert Redford and I like Paul Newman. But, if you talk about them with the screen chemistry between those, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But there's no Culp and Cosby.
Right.
These guys are and they were breaking history. I mean, it was just that this show got on the air at all at that time because it had never, there had been no black heroes on, and it was and Bob Culp fought all the time to keep Bill an equal on the show. Not as, because if you ever see the original pilot to I Spy, it's not Shuttle and I Spy.
Yeah.
Bill is definitely a second, he's a secondary character to Kelly Robinson.
Yeah.
Bob Culp goes out and writes one to make sure that they're together. The two of them are equal.
Yeah.
And they were going to let love interest be for Alexander Scott. Well, then Bob wrote one with Eartha Kitt so that they could do a love. Because once you break those barriers down, it gets easier to do it the next time around.
Yeah.
So it's a constant fight about, doing gay characters. And we were talking about Saber earlier because I knew I was going to be putting gay characters in there. And I think I might have told you the story the other day.
Yeah.
Like by the time issue 7 came out of Saber, and for me that's when the series really starts.
Yeah.
Saber was getting back just in time for the babies being born.
Yes.
And Dean Mulaney's brother Jan, he was the one who would pick up the artwork for Billy Graham. Billy was drawing it. Yeah. And I had chosen Billy because I knew, unlike the artist that had drawn Saber earlier, I knew I was going to have transsexuals in it. We're talking 1981 to 83. Again, it's a different time period, and nothing in comics is even coming close to handling anything like that.
No.
But I said to Dean, if I'm going to do a costume hero, because we went through, I was shelving Ragamuffins, I was shelving Detectives Incorporated. Coming back to Saber, that's how Saber really begins. I knew I had to do a costume character. That's what people wanted to see from me. And the big difference was it wasn't going to be a regular series. It was 38 pages. In that 38 pages, I could do anything I wanted.
Yeah.
But it's 38 pages.
Right.
So I really, and you better have something to deliver. We were asking $6 for a comic book in 1978.
Sure. And so this is at the very cusp of the independent market selling
actually,
to...
the real beginning of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we sold out. I think we had a second edition out within 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
Because nobody knew if the book was going to go.
Yeah. You really launched Eclipse with that, and then others would follow.
Financed Steve Gerber. I could finance Stuart Durrett, Steve Gerber.
Right.
Colin did, and Craig Russell did Night Music.
Yep.
And I can't remember all of them. Then finally, I think the fourth one was. And then I could do Detectives.
Right. Yeah. So there was a point where you were doing Saber and
then
Detective.
I could do gay characters in Detectives Incorporated. I could do gay characters.
Yes.
And that was the first time it had ever been done. Again, it was I only had 46 pages. And one of my favorite reviews I've ever gotten is from a gay critic who understood that I only had 46 pages. Most people reviewing comics don't really understand you've got to contend with the format you're given.
Yeah.
For instance, if I'm doing the Black Panther, and this is a bi-monthly book, if I read a character out for one issue, and if I write Wakabi out for one issue, and if I write Taco out for one issue, that's 4 months between times where people see that character.
Right.
2 books is half a year. That's a long time to ask people to care about those characters.
Sure.
And if there's the only thing that I know that really draws people back into a book is if they care about those people. They want to see what happens to those characters next.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a single book that's only got 38 pages, it's going to try to have the weight of a Panther's Rage, which is 200 and some pages,
sure,
or a Killraven that lasted for 3 years. And in 38 pages, you better give the audience something, because they're looking to see, what is Don going to rest on his laws? What is he going to do? Is he just going to do the same old thing he was doing before? It better have something. That's the thing. As far as I'm saying, Saber has to break every rule that's in costume hero comics.
Yeah.
And so the fact was, it wasn't going to be a hero. It was like love him and leave him.
Yeah.
As other people wanted. That's not my character. And it's not what I'm interested in writing. Mm-hmm. And so Saber reflected the things I really wanted to write about and what I saw going on. society. When you talk about the separate names, and it became a pain in the ass. It was like, because everybody had to have a name that was kind of reflective of their personalities or how they saw themselves. That gave you distinctive names for the covers for doing a costume hero kind of thing.
Yeah. Now let me just pause. In that mythology, there was a point in the future where people decided that they would rename themselves. So you'd get names yes,
Crimson Dawn or Black Star Blood or Midnight Storm. Or, and the names are always Summer Ice or Deuces Wild. And the names are always a little bit. If it was like Joyful Slaughter, because Joyful really liked killing people. He had no problem with that. You know? So I still get a kick out of Joyful.
Oh yeah,
I love the conversation between him and him and Sabre, because there's just it's so wild and crazy, and yet it can't compete with the real world.
Oh yeah,
it's getting crazier all the time.
I always pictured he pronounced Sabre's name straight, like Sabry or
Sabry.
Sabry, yes, yeah.
Always called him Sabry.
Yeah.
But I think in that book, then I could do gay characters.
Yeah.
And then I started to tell the story about Jan getting the artwork on the issue where the babies are born.
Yeah.
And Jan picks the artwork up, and when he comes out to me, he goes, Don, you have the babies being born on panel. You can see the babies coming out. And I said, well, Jan, a lot of what this book is about is that society's values are all askew. You have a problem with babies being born. But there's a war going on around this year. Arms are being blown off. People are being mutilated. People are being, murdered. Ask me to take one act of violence out of this book. I'll take any act of violence out you want. Because that's what this book is about. And the next batch of pages that Jan has to pick, and Jan said, Don, it's your book. You're going to hit it by sales, 10,000 copies. It's always 10,000 copies. Whether it's big company, small company, it's 10,000. I don't know how they're going to scale somewhere. There's 10,000 copies if you do this. That's it. You're going to kill our book. You're going to kill your book. So the next batch of pages that Jan picks up from Billy Graham is two men kissing. This has not been done in American comics before. So Billy calls it up to tell me, Don, Jan picked up the artwork. He's on his way out to you in Brooklyn. I said, yeah.
This seems like a variation of being pulled into the office with the door shutting.
Well, no, because now it's my book.
Yeah.
No matter what, it doesn't matter what anybody says.
Good for you.
It's my book.
Yeah.
So Billy goes, I said, yeah. And so Billy goes, well, he saw the two guys kissing, Don. I said, yeah. And what did he say? I said, well, yeah. He looked down at the artwork, and then he looked up at me, and then he looked back at the artwork again, and then he looked up at me, and then he looked down at the artwork for a long time, and then finally he said, I guess there's no sense in talking to Don about that.
I knew you well. He knew you well. And then very quickly after that, I think there was a sequence with a woman with bare breasts, but it wasn't sexualized. She was breastfeeding, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, again, it's a natural thing. And in fact, I know I have some where Melissa squirts breast milk into Sabre's eye.
Yes. Right, yeah.
Well, what I really get is that especially women very often are much more playful about sex than men are.
Mm-hmm.
And that these people could be together and be a mother and father, but still be playful and still be loving with each other.
Yeah.
Still be sexually attracted to each other. And this had not been done. It certainly wasn't commonplace in comics. If it had been done in other places, I don't know where it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in Prince Valiant, you would have, because another aspect of Sabre is Prince Valiant.
Yeah. Yeah, you talked a little bit
about a love story about a man and a woman trying to raise a family in a world where everything else is the events of the world around us are always going crazy.
Yeah, right.
Maybe crazier now, or maybe we just see more of it because we got so much, so many, TVs and the internet and, cell phones, and it's bombarding us with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But by the way, that was part of one of the part, like doing the names of Sabre. it was a pain in the neck. 'Cause anybody that walked on, you couldn't even want somebody to just say him.
Right. they'd stand out.
Everybody's like, well, what's this? Gary, so this person character is Gary Decker. This is Wiener Neverhard.
Yeah. Right.
Well, what's this person's name? Well, see, it really
you kind of raised the bar yourself. Yeah.
It really became a challenge.
But you only have yourself to blame for that.
It's like really reflective of like at the internet now when you see people have all these names they give themselves.
Sure.
If you think about it, what have they done? Exactly what people are doing in Sabre. They're just not doing it through the internet.
Yeah. That's a great. I never thought of that. That's a great.
But
point.
I realized that at some point, look at this. This person's called because they want to be that, or they want to project themselves as being that. And so, I always found that kind of.
That's great. You know, Don, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this book, Dragon Flame, which was kind of a breakthrough book at that time, published not by a big publishing firm, but some very personal stories, some very adventurous stories.
The ad for the story was, buy this book, or the comics industry will shoot this author.
Yes.
With a .357 Magnum pointed to my head. And Roy Thomas, no matter what he says these days, and he's in print saying this, so I'm safe to say this, Roy said, if I see that photograph one more time, I'll pull the trigger myself.
You marketed it hard. You got him. This was a good project for you? You liked it?
Absolutely. It was a breakthrough project for me in a lot of ways. One, Dave Kraft he wanted me to write an introduction for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to write an introduction. I was reluctant at first. While I did all my own letters pages, there was always like an editorial we. So even though I was answering the letters to the Black Panther or to Killraven, and you were getting my personal views on it, it still was that editorial we.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always like a barrier between me. I wasn't used to saying I feel this, I think this, I want this, whatever it is. And so I wasn't used to doing it. And I thought, I don't feel that the stories need to be explained.
Mm-hmm.
However, because the stories are written at different points in my life, once Dave convinced me to do the introduction, and Dave probably then thought, I created a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
I said, okay, Dave, I'll write the introduction for every one of the stories.
Yeah.
Because they were from different time periods of my life. So it gave you background, not to what the stories meant or what you should think about them, but where I was at the time that I wrote them.
Yeah, I think maybe when you mentioned before about how your fans feel very close and reveal things about themselves, I wonder if things like this really help facilitate that, because you're so giving.
This is what things that you learn as you're doing this, and they're not things you would ever think about before. But when I wrote this book, I was in the midst of going through the divorce, stuff happening with my daughter. So there's stories about not being able to afford. Well, actually, I think that's at the very syndrome. The second book I did.
Yeah.
Not being able to afford to buy her a Christmas tree.
Yes.
And thinking, I'll give Marvel anything they want. Tell me, guys, what is it you want me to do? I'll do it. Because I want to buy this little girl.
Yeah.
She's 5, 6 years old at the time. And some people say, boy, Don, if every story you wrote, like Lord and the Christmas trees, was as good as that, you'd be a pretty good writer.
No, there are.
But the thing about this book was, it's so personal, especially in the introductions.
Yeah.
But it's where I was at the time I was writing it.
Yeah.
By the time the book came out, I don't know how much time had passed. So by the time I was meeting people, and people had a chance to read the book, they're still seeing the Don Mcgregor that's in the midst of going through a divorce and going through child custody courts. And, so it's a very traumatic, emotional time for me. By that time, I'm like with Marshall. I'm having sex every day, and I'm going through Manhattan. It takes us 15 minutes to walk a block, and I'm having a great
You're
time.
in a much better part.
So it's really strange, because to them, this is where I am right now. But no, actually, I'm over here now.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was very, that time-lapse kind of thing is just, that was something unique to...
Yeah.
You get adjusted to.
Yeah, I remember there's another line where you talk about with your daughter, and you talk about the the impending deadline as the weekend for visitation ends. And as a divorced dad, I remember connecting with that, years and years, just resonates on such a personal level. Yeah.
And Lorna and I are still close.
Yeah.
I can't say how old she is these days because she'd kill me. But Lauren would, for a while, she dressed as Lady Rawhide. She would come to conventions with me. And that it was not my idea that for Lauren to... She and Marcia came up with that, not me.
Yeah.
I was just glad that my daughter liked to be with me and still wanted to do things with me. I'm still close with my son, with my daughter. And, I can't imagine my life without Lauren in it.
Oh, that's very sweet.
The first Sabre is dedicated to her.
Yes.
It's... the second one's dedicated to my son, and the third one's dedicated to my wife.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
So it covers all three of them.
You've got a lot of deep passions. I did want to touch on Zorro and Lady Rawhide and some of that. And also, I understand you're a big Western fan. Was that a part of why you love Zorro so much? And if you can tell me a little bit about that particular... well,
I know they're always saying they have to reinvent the Western.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at the Western's like any other genre. There's stuff that's really good and there's stuff that's okay, and it depends on what it appeals to.
Sure.
I'm not saying that I always can live up to all these ideas, but like Hopalong Cassidy was like a second father to me.
Yeah.
Then I got to meet his wife and his widow and get to be friends with Grace in later years. It's like one of the treasures of my life.
Yeah,
she's everything Mrs. Hopalong Cassidy you could possibly want. She was just great.
Yeah. And Hopalong and
it's
it's
the thing, like basically, if you gave your word, you kept it.
Yeah.
You didn't sign a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You said you're going to do it, you do it. If a friend is in trouble and you can help out, and there's a way for you to help out, then you try to do it. If something bad really is happening, you don't turn your head and look the other way and pretend you didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you don't betray people that you love. I mean, so those things always, they're a part of me. I'm not saying I always live up to them. I'm not saying that I'm but did I love that about the Hopalong Cassidy character and the personality of William Boyd himself? Yes.
Yeah.
Later on, this is one of the things I love about Zorro. What is Zorro? But Zorro sticks up for... He's in an oppressive society in early Los Angeles, California. And, again, the military's in charge. Mm-hmm. They can be as corrupt or as authoritarian as they want and abuse their power.
Yeah.
And Sabre, I mean...
Sorry.
Let's say...
Some similarities.
Sabre, but Zorro is like, the guy's going to come in and say, no, I'm not going to let people victimize the Indians or victimize the people who don't have money. So I think that character resonates all the way through. And the great thing about Zorro is his personality. The one thing when Mike Mayhew first started to draw the Zorro comics, I kept telling him, despite the fact that they keep putting in the movies that the Batman is influenced by Zorro, Zorro is not the Batman. Mm-hmm. This guy has a sense of humor. He has a real zest for life. Yeah. And you need to capture that. Stop with the grim expressions. He's smiling when he's sword fighting.
Sure.
And this only displays his opponents even more. So there are a lot of things I love the Disney Zorro, and like one of my requirements was, can I do the Disney Zorro people? And I asked this of John Kurtz at Zorro Production. He said, yeah, I have the rights to do everything. Because if I can't do Captain Monasterio, if I can't do Sergeant Garcia, I don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I had an okay to do all of that, so I said, well, all right, then let's go and let's do this thing.
But you expanded so much, again, so many great villains and secondary characters in your Zorro series.
Well, one of the things, it was certainly the creation of Lady Rawhide.
Yeah.
Because it was a monthly book, and I was putting Jim off because...
And that's Jim Salicrup?
Yes, Jim Salicrup had approached me about doing Zorro. And he knew I loved Zorro.
Yes.
And it would be steady work. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I said yes to it, it was going to... I knew myself well enough as a writer by then. Zorro would suddenly become a large part of my life.
Yeah.
And did I want to commit that much of my life where every day I'm, 3/4 of what I write or more will be just all.
Yeah.
And it was going to take a lot of research to do it. So, in going through this all stuff, what did I like? What did I? And one of the things was that women either they were duenas and they were in the hacienda, or they were barmaids. And I said, no, I can't write a monthly book and not have any women in it. There's got to be some women characters. If there's no women in the book, I can't write it.
Good for you. You figured out a way.
So then I thought, okay, so there's got to be a character in there that can be Zor's equal.
Yeah.
And that every time she's on the scene, maybe she's going to steal the scene from him.
Yeah.
And so, I worked with Mike a lot on Lady Roy. I had a completely different design for her outfit, and when I saw it, it made more sense. To be honest, it was more realistic. I said, Mike, it's just not sexy enough. It's just not dynamic enough. I really wanted whenever she appears, man, you're aware she's there.
Right.
And we could comment upon. And one of the other things I really wanted to get at is that women in comics normally were allowed to look sexy, but they weren't allowed to be sexual. Mm-hmm. Lady Rawhide is sexual.
Yes.
She has a sexual identity and lusts, and I wanted a character that could express that.
Yeah.
And at the risk that it would cost her, because as a woman in her time frame, even a brother could have sent to a convent.
Yeah.
And for years of her life, maybe for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So for her to do what she's doing is, she's risking everything. Don Diego's risking a lot, obviously doing what he's doing. But in a way, it's really, if she ever gets caught, she's done with her family and everything.
Yeah.
It's all done for her.
Yeah.
So, and I was really careful to come up with ways that her hair isn't the same color as she is when she's in her civilian identity.
Yeah.
As Anita Santiago. And when they did the Queen of Swords, Zoll Productions was going to sue over that show. But if you ever watch that show, here's this beautiful woman, and she puts on a mask, and she's like the best-looking woman in Los Angeles, and she rides it, and nobody knows that this is her. Well, I think it's going to be pretty easy to figure out. She's the woman of swords.
Yeah, right.
So, Lady Rawhide finds a way to dye her hair.
Yeah.
And to make sure that everything is different, so that she, and she's always disguising her voice, so her voice won't be the same. And so a lot of thought went into developing her character.
Yeah.
And it gave a dynamic to it that. But when I did the newspaper series, I didn't use her.
Yeah, she wasn't in. No.
And the reason for it was because Lady Rawhide. She was a problematic character because she was sexual. It's always sex. It's not violence that gives you. It's always sex.
Yeah.
And because she was such a sexual character, I knew that going into the newspaper strip, if I did it, I would have to neuter the character so much.
Yeah.
That there'd be just no sense of doing it. Plus which, since we were in the midst of doing the comic books, I thought these stories will then be set before any of that happens.
Right.
And so that way, it doesn't destroy the continuity between what's going on in the books and what was going on in the strips.
Right.
But then when I did Eulalia Bandini, she was a barmaid, Tom Yates and Todd Smith did a fantastic job with her. That I brought her back in to do a thing with the priest.
Yes. And
I only was going to do the scene with the priest, and and she added something to that scene. And when the big stagecoach chase, it lasted for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
She originally wasn't on stage. Literally the day about that, I'm going to start the chase, and Zoe's going to steal Monastery's chasing with the corpse and everything. So I'm going to have Eula's going to jump on board. And Tom Yates called me and said, "Are you sure you want to do this, Don?"
Oh, really?
I said, "Oh, yeah, no, I want to do it." And she added so much to the scene.
Yeah.
Because she could be the audience. Because she could react to all the wild craziness that's going on around her. and she could bounce dialogue off his own. He had somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And she really added so much to that scene.
Yeah, that was a memorable scene.
And then I really came to love her. So then the entire second year is around Eulalia.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's very clear you love women and you love your characters. Don, I have about 5 or 6 more things that we got to talk about, but I think it's going to have to be part 2. We're coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to following your adventures in the future, the things you're doing, the reminiscences you have, of course, the viewpoints and the thoughtful thinking that you give everything you touch on. And we're grateful for this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Thank you, Don. That's great.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Well, we didn't get any questions from the audience.
Yeah, we can throw some questions out. I think our next one is a little late. Does anyone have a question from the audience? Yeah? Good? Okay. Yeah, Peter?
You said you were having sex every day. I think that's great. That was with your wife, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that was his new wife. Absolutely. You know, there is one story that might be good to get on. You had revealed to me that there was a story about Batman that you had plotted that never really came to pass. Do you have 5 minutes? You can just talk to us about that.
Okay, at the time I was doing Nathaniel Dusk for D.C.
Yeah, and that was a private eye?
Mm-hmm. And Dick Giacchino asked me, is there any character at D.C. that you really want to do?
Yeah.
And I guess there's no character that I like more at D.C. than the Batman.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly fond of the Batman they do these days, but I don't know about I haven't seen that, but what they were turning you into this kind of hard-bitten character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'm crazy about that, but I said, yeah, I like the Batman. And so Dick said, well, work up a story for the Batman. So, in questioning around, like I'm always like working with topics that seem to be important to write about. What can you do?
Yeah. And
there was stuff about, kidnapped kids and pedophiles, and I thought, okay, the opening premise would just be like the Batman saying a 6-year-old has been kidnapped,
mm-hmm.
and there's a sex traffic ring in Gotham City.
Yeah.
And Batman says, maybe I can't stop murderers, maybe I can't stop rapists, maybe I can't stop drug dealers, maybe I can't, but nobody's stealing kids in my city.
Yeah, that's great.
And so then I could explore and I really did a lot of research. I was working with all the scenes. A lot of it is like with a little 6-year-old kid, and it's all through his point of view and subjectively what he thinks as a 6-year-old. And I had somebody who worked in the sex crimes division in L.A. That dealt with kids all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I would pass this stuff on. Anything I wrote, I said, how accurate am I? Do I have this right? Am I capturing how this can feel, what it would be? And he said, Don, if you can get this book published, we can. And if DC will do an ad for it, we'll do a thing where parents can and people, if they're in this situation. And I think if we help one family, with this book. So I worked out, and it was going to deal with going everything from the male prostitutes that hang out at the gaming places and the politicians that take advantage, some of them have predilections that
that's so great.
Position, so it was going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm always looking for safe subjects.
Yeah, right. How safe.
So anyhow, I wrote the story up, and remember, I haven't been paid anything for it. And I guess Dick Giacchino passed it on to Julie Schwartz.
Oh, yeah.
And I was out, and Julie Schwartz calls and gets Marshall.
Marcia, your wife, he calls at your house.
And he starts yelling at her. We don't do this kind of story. We don't do this kind of story. This is it's too sort of. I don't want any thing like that. The Batman and he's yelling at Marcia.
Huh.
And so when I come home, Marcia tells me that Julie, and I called Julie Schwartz up. I said, You ever call my wife up again and start yelling at her, I will be down at those offices first thing the next day. Yeah. You will deal with me personally. You got a problem with me, you call me. Well, Don, we don't do this kind of stuff at DC Comics. I said, look. He said, I do gimmick stories. Give me a gimmick. I said, well, I don't do gimmick stories. I haven't been paid a word for the story. You got no right to be mad about anything. Yeah. Send the story back. But now, years later, regimes have changed at DC, and Bob Schreck was editing Batman.
Great guy.
And Bob is a great guy. So, I'm talking to Bob about this Batman story. Bob says, yeah, let's do it.
Wow.
Send me a proposal on. So I know how these things work, that especially because of the subject matter, they're going to want to know everything that's in there. Because as soon as you send them something, it's going to be, I don't care. They're going to, well, how are you going to handle this? Or how are you going to handle that? So I give them the entire, every scene that's going to be in this book.
No.
One of people picking up young girls in the bus stations. Because this happened to my daughter in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Like at 2 o'clock in the morning, she's heading back to the West Coast.
Jeez.
And a lot of young girls disappear that way.
Yeah.
So everything was like based on stuff I either really knew about, people had gone through. I was with people who dealt with that kind of stuff. And so I did all, so they had it all.
Yeah.
And then Bob said, no, just do a 1 or 2 page thing. I don't have time to read this. So I said I break down. I do a 1 or 2 page thing, which I'm not. I think it's probably the only time I ever did it.
Right.
And so Bob writes me back. He goes, "Well, Don, I can't see the faces of these people. They're like wearing kabuki masks." So I write back to Bob and said, "Well, obviously you're more intelligent than the average comic book editor. The kabuki mask is less reference, but you asked for 1 page." What do you think you're going to see underneath the mask in 1 page?
Oh, yeah.
You got the entire script there. So Bob gives me a call and said, Don, let's go out to lunch. And when we went out to lunch together, Bob said, to be honest with you, Don, when we started talking about this, I thought I was going to have what I said was the bottom line for what I was going to do in my books. He said, and they're making me rewrite Frank Miller. Oh. If they're making me rewrite Frank Miller, what do you think they'll make me do to Don Mcgregor?
Oh, yeah.
See, you don't have to say anything more, Bob. I got it. I understand. You're absolutely right. And that's the reason the story didn't get done.
Oh, wow.
But the story still exists. And it could be done.
Maybe someone's listening to this and will give you a call. You never know. Good.
I'll just say, that Don is still such a pain in the ass. Will the guy never change?
I hope he never does. Well, Don Mcgregor, thank you so very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good.
Hope you enjoyed it.
That's Don Mcgregor and Ed Cato. Ed has several panels going on at Comic-Con, starting things off at 10:30 in the morning, a panel called How to Get News Coverage. What's the difference between getting an item that will get news coverage, previews, and interviews, and what doesn't? It's going to involve Rick Offenberger from First Comic News and Archie Comics, Tim Shizmar from Fangoria, Greg Howman from Comic Mix, that's Mike Gold's website, or former website, I should say, Jezebel from First Comic News. Our buddy Rob Salkowitz, who you'll hear later this week, is also on the panel, along with Ed and Josh Waldrop from Red Gorilla Comics, J.C. Vaughn from Gemstone Publishing, who publish Overstreet, and Holly Golightly from Broadsword Comics. They all explain what worked for them, what to avoid when looking for press coverage. Sounds like a good informative panel for a creator-owned person. You might want to check it out. Ed also has a Captain Action panel on Thursday from 4 to 5. He is part of Vanguard Publications' 25th anniversary panel. David Spurlock, and I'm sure a lot of other great people, Friday afternoon from 4 to 5. And then on Saturday, he has a panel involving Overstreet about licensing. And that's Saturday from noon to 1. So that's Ed Cato's schedule. Don Mcgregor will be with me at Terrificon, and that'll be next month, starting on August 17th at Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, in their big convention rooms. Very excited about doing Terrificon. There's a lot of great Silver Age, Bronze Age, and modern creators that are all going to be there. Don is going to be on a Black Panther panel that I will moderate on Saturday, along with other great Black Panther voices like Afua Richardson, the wonderful artist, Christopher Priest, the wonderful writer. Very, very excited about this Black Panther panel at Terrificon with Don Mcgregor. So as we walk over to the small press area and get set up for our conversation with Jason Inman that gets more traditionally word balloony, I want to stop and take a break and tell you about some of the great deals that are going on at In-Stock Trades at InStockTrades.com. There's great Don Mcgregor product waiting for you there at In-Stock Trades at great prices. You can get the Black Panther Epic Collection trade paperback, Panther's Rage, a wonderful series from Don Mcgregor, and with a Gil Kane cover. Rick Buckler is involved with this book as well. It's one of the great McGregor Black Panther stories, and it's 42% off, just $20.29. You can get his Zorro story, Matanzas, the trade paperback with Don McGregor and Mike Mayhew. It's a great lost adventure of Zorro, one of those fantastic stories that they do at Dynamite. 30% off, it's $10.49. Or you can get the epic Black Panther Panther's Quest trade paperback. Don McGregor, Gene Colan, a Bill Reinhold cover, and it's a fantastic story. 42% off, $17.39. It's all waiting for you at InStockTrades.com. Don't forget, $50 or more, you'll receive free shipping. Great books at great prices, InStockTrades.com. All right, as we move on to the small press area, let's pick up our conversation with Jason Inman. You remember Jason? He does great work on video at YouTube and his Geek History Lesson podcast. Fantastic in-depth conversations with himself and Ashley Robinson discussing one particular comic book topic. And, man, I'll tell you, I loved his Golden Age and Silver Age Superman runs. The Justice Society one was excellent. I'm a big fan of the show. Jason also has appeared a lot on Collider Videos with our buddy Rob Meyer-Burnett. Ashley has done that as well. Jason and Ashley have co-written a very interesting graphic novel called Jupiter Jet. It is being put out by Action Lab, and it's a really fun adventure, and I'm really happy to help Jason promote it. The book just came out. It's available now. Order it from your comic book stores. Very much in the flavor of The Rocketeer as we get into our conversation. But also not only talking about Jupiter Jet, but we slide over to streaming talk and also movies. I think you'll enjoy it. Here's our conversation now with Jason Inman on Word Balloon. Jason Inman, welcome back to Word Balloon, and congratulations. First trade for Jupiter Jet.
Thank you, man. It is an absolute pleasure coming back to Word Balloon. Again, it's always mind-blowing to me, man, because I'm a huge fan of this podcast. I've been a huge fan of this podcast for years. So I can't believe that I'm a returning guest.
You're a good man. No. We have good conversations. And, hey, man, you're making good content, not only online when you give your reviews and your opinions, you and Ash, but you guys are doing a great job with Jupiter Jet as well. And I'm happy to help you promote the book. And like I said, trade one out. And
yes,
nice twists. I think I don't want to spoil for people who haven't come along for the ride, but I think the world of Jupiter Jet expands in a very interesting way, and I think opens a door for more interesting stories.
Yeah, that's the thing that we can finally talk about after 2 years of Jupiter Jet. We've always been teasing that there's a sci-fi twist in the 5th issue, and I think a lot of people didn't believe us, but that little sci-fi turn that happens around page 12 or 13 in issue 5 was in our original meeting about Jupiter Jet. When we first came up with the name, I shouted that out. It just came from nowhere. So it was like the mana from the gods filtering down. And, it's really exciting because our first trade came out. It's volume 1. I like to talk, it's sort of our pilot episode of our season. It's sort of like the pilot. Like if you're gonna get into Jupiter Jet, like this is your nice little taste, and now we want to take you into season 2 because it really goes in a lot of different places.
I can appreciate that, absolutely, man. And I think this is the kind of book that I think would excite a young reader, or if you're a parent and you want to read along with your child, this is a good book to do it with. Good, fun, bouncy art and good action, but appropriate all ages action. And yeah, I think, like you said, I think this sci-fi twist is going to excite kids. And, I don't know how quickly you're going to turn around and get going on the second arc, but very cool, man. I like the twist.
We have no plans currently. We have talked to the publisher a little bit. We know exactly what would happen.
Sure.
In book 2, and there are a lot of hints for that if you read the backups that we did in every issue. So like the backup every issue, in case your listeners don't know, we did a sort of prequel to Jupiter Jet, where it was about her parents and how her parents dealt with the situations that we saw in the same issue. The hints for what Volume 2 will be are in those backups.
Yep.
So, and you can kind of piece it together. I think if you're a smart reader, and I kind of hope that, everybody that picks up Jupiter Jet is a smart reader, and I'm going to say you are a smart reader because you picked it up. But, they're all there, and there's a lot of fun stuff. And yeah, it's I'll tell you what, my friend, it's crazy to have a trade paperback. This is my first trade paperback. I've been on lots of I've been in anthologies, but it's kind of neat to see, your name on a spine and to see all those single issues kind of come together in sort of a book, an actual book. It's really neat. It's really cool.
Understood. And I think, I think you guys stuck the landing. I think you guys did a great job. And
thank you, dude.
Absolutely. And I also like how the backups...
You sure you're not going to turn this into like an intervention?
Yeah, however.
You're like, I was secretly, however, you should have done this. No. And in page 25, you invalidated your whole premise.
No.
There is no page 25. We didn't have that many pages.
Well, there you go. No, and I was going to say, as you brought up the backup stories too, yeah, they kind of wrap around, and as you say, are a springboard into what may come next. And I thought that was very clever writing in terms of what starts as a prequel, wraps around in a very string theory sort of way, where the past is the present, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, here we are.
Yeah, we can spoil that a little bit.
Okay.
The backup for our prequel series, or the 2 pages in every issue, the ending of it leads you about 6 months before issue 1 begins. So it kind of ties nicely, because we wrote this and I was so happy. It was the last thing we wrote on the whole thing. The last page of our backup says the end and the beginning, right. ? Which I had always planned from the beginning with Ashley. I told her, I was like, that's the way I want to end it. And it's one of those confusing comic book phrases. There's a very famous cover of Uncanny X-Men. Jim Lee is drawing the issue, and Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine are on the cover. And the caption for the cover says, "Together again for the first time," which is one of those comic book phrases that you're like, this doesn't work. But just like the end and the beginning, it's one of those that you want to do because you're like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, it wraps us into the beginning of the first issue, and that was intentional because we really wanted to, Ashley and I, to sort of mimic the adventures of the parents with the adventures of the kids.
Absolutely.
And it's intentional if you look through it. The issue 1 backup is sort of tied together to the issue 1 issue. And we also sprinkled in some explanations for some stuff that were happening in the main issue in the backup. So you meet some certain characters or you learn some concepts in the backup just slightly before you learn them in the regular issue, which is so interesting because this was not intentional, because the backup only happened because we had a stretch goal on our Kickstarter. And so when we hit a stretch goal for our Kickstarter, when we funded, which was amazing, we funded in 3 days. Mm-hmm. When we funded, Ashley and I immediately were, what do we do for our stretch goal? And we had wanted to work with Jorge Corona for a very long time. And so we had met him at a couple cons. We reached out to him. We were like, hey, if we hit this goal, would you draw 10 pages for us? Because we thought 2 pages per issue.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And we were like, well, we don't even know if we'll hit it. So who knows? We hit it the next day. So suddenly we were like, uh-oh, we got to write 10 more pages. Here we go. And luckily we'd hit Jorge up early enough just before his amazing series number 1 with a Bullet, which I think is great. If you haven't read it, go read it at Image.
Oh, yeah.
So, and also now he's Eisner nominated. So I was glad that we were able to slip Jorge in and get to work with him before he becomes uber famous and more talented than all of us.
Well, and again, you were able to, because of your Kickstarter, and was it a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter?
It was a Kickstarter.
It was a Kickstarter. All right, thanks, Jason. And because you were able to hit your goals, it obviously, I think, probably made you that much more attractive to Action Lab to get this thing going. Do you see yourself doing possibly a similar model and kickstarting a Volume 2 and kind of going through the process like that again?
Yeah, like I think we do. Now, the earliest that we could do a volume 2, and we haven't gotten Action Labs thumbs up or thumbs down on a volume 2. That is all going to be mainly determined on how the trade sells.
Sure.
Which is the secret of comic books, my friends.
Of course.
But if you listen to this podcast, I think you know all the secrets of comic books because John talks to way more important and better people than me. So, it would be next year at the earliest. Ben, our artist, Ben Matsui, the fantastic Ben Matsui, is working on another sort of creator-owned book with a different creator right now.
Okay.
That he got because of Jupiter Jet, which is super awesome.
Oh, that's great. Very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad that it's so funny, Ben, when the book was going along, when the trade was first coming out and they did a listing in Barnes & Noble, he did a tweet that was really cute that it was like, hey, oh my God, my work is in Barnes & Noble. Haha. He did the same thing when we got into preview. So it was really cool. And it's really nice that this is our journey along with his together hitting these sort of milestones.
No,
but but next year, we're gonna do another project before we get to Jupiter Jet Volume 2. We want to change the palette up a little bit, but that one will be a Kickstarter as well. It's tough, man. Unless we sell Jupiter Jet, unless some company like Netflix or Disney or Warner Brothers scoops up Jupiter Jet and is like, this is going to be our next cartoon. It comes back to the issue where we have to fund the book again. Like sure. we have to pay for the artist and the colorist and the letterer and the cover artist and all the variants and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. We actually asked for less than what we needed. And here's the secret sauce of the whole thing. Ashley and I didn't receive one dime from any of the Kickstarter money. It all went into the production of the book.
Good to hear. And understood, too. And I know that's obviously part of the gamble as well, sometimes to fund a book and pay the people, get quality people so you can put out a quality product.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Like working with professionals is expensive, kids.
Yeah, man. No, I understand. And I was talking with, other creators recently as well, older creators. And I think that's one of their concerns about trying to do creator-owned books, people that kind of spent their career either at a DC or a Marvel. And like, well, there's no money up front. And it's I understand. And again, and you want to pay the artists that can help you, like a letterer and a colorist and a regular artist to, like I said, make a quality book. So usually it is the writer that's going to kind of eat it until money comes in from the finished product, from the trade or whatever. So I can appreciate that. No.
Yeah, and it's a tough argument, too, because especially some of the old guard, there are many comic book creators out there that aren't really working for the big two anymore. And I would love to see, like, what is their creator-owned book? But I understand, having done it myself now, yeah, it's a big economic investment. And then if you do the economic investment, there's still a big chance that it will never pay off.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And can be really tough, especially if you're a comic book creator with a family or a mortgage, or it's a very, very risky gamble.
Agreed. Absolutely, man. Well, again, I think you did a hell of a job on this first volume, and I don't blame you guys for jumping on a different title as well. I reminded of people like Remender and Bendis who basically did the same thing very early in their careers.
Yes, exactly.
So
we actually, I have to tell this story. We tweeted about it, but I could not believe it. Jupiter Jet sort of made a cameo in a Brian Michael Bendis thing very recently.
Huh.
So
what did I miss?
So he did a video where he was doing a Superman interview, and I think it was for Time.com or the New York Times, one of the two. And they did a video. And like many comic book professional interviews, they go to a comic book shop for the background, and they filmed a lot of B-roll. And some of the B-roll, in the first 30 seconds, some of the B-roll is Brian looking through comic books. In the first 30 seconds of this video, he goes, "Oh, hey, that looks interesting," and he pulls a book off the shelf. And the book is the trade of Jupiter Jet.
Very nice. Excellent, man.
And he starts flipping through it. So me and Ashley and our artist even are all like, "Hey, we made a cameo in a Brian Michael Bendis thing."
That's excellent.
Brian tweets Ashley and says, "Nope, I even bought it," and showed us
great.
the picture of it. Yeah, so it was really cool. So we're now best friends, and I'm going to a barbecue later there tonight. No, I'm completely aligned. I've actually never met Brian. He's very nice, and I always love listening to your interviews with him too.
Well, he's the best, as you know from listening to these word balloons, and I'm sure when you run into him at a convention, it'll be a nice encounter because he's a good guy. And yeah, that's the great thing. No, he always likes to try new things. And,
I'm going to name drop you like crazy.
Please do. Oh, that's fine. See? And that only reinforces the proof that people do listen. No, he's great that way. He'll always be like, "Hey man, just so you know, more word balloon talk at my last appearance." I'm like, "Great." That's wonderful.
Is that your Bendis?
That's part of my Bendis. Hello. Yes.
Do you have any other comic book creator impressions? I imagine it's a very niche market.
Dan DiDio, of course. That's basically, combination.
Everybody has a Dan DiDio.
Hey, how are you? All right, this is great. All right, I don't want to spend a lot of time, but very excited about the DC Nation today. I even do the laugh.
My favorite thing is Jack Kirby.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, those two. I'm trying to think. Who else do I do that's well, of course, Mark Waid. If I have a minute, I'd like to point out that Doctor Strange actually has an interesting backstory, and it's like, yeah, we know.
That is a great Mark Waid. That's a pretty good Mark Waid, man. That's really good. Wow.
See, being a radio guy, this is what we do. We mimic voices.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't got my Jason Inman yet, but
oh, dude, I don't even want to hear it.
That's all right.
It's gonna be very Midwestern with a lot of ums.
That's all right. That's our way, exactly, man. I completely understand that. I'm very happy with. Now, how has the trade come out yet, or is it?
Yeah. So our first volume has come out. It came out May 30th.
Oh, great!
So it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I think Target has it, but your local comic book shop can order it as well. It's very affordably priced at $14.99, which is a steal. It's actually less than if you bought all 5 issues together. So I'm sorry, people that did that.
Well, that's cool. That's all right.
Yeah. So it looks good. It's got a John Boy Myers cover. It's really great.
Outstanding. And I noticed as I was thumbing through the PDF that you sent me of subsequent issues, you had an Art Baltazar variant cover.
Oh, yes, dude. That's a dream. Art Baltazar. It's so funny. I ran into him at New York Comic Con last year. And I didn't realize it was Art. But he was a very dressed, dapper man with a very nice hat and a vest and a tie. And I walked past him, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I'm a fan of you." And I said to him, "Of what? How are you?" He's like, he said, "Well, I've seen you on DC. I've seen you on Collider. I've watched a lot of your videos." And I said, "Oh, thank you. What's your name?" And he goes, "Art." And without missing a beat, I go, "Are you Art Baltazar?" And he says, "Yes." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm a fan of you. Oh, man." And then and then the end of the conversation ended up with "So what do I have to pay you to do a variant cover for my personal comic book?" And he said, "Well, a lot, but, it'll be a cheap a lot."
That's good. Well,
so
it looked great.
It's great. It was really good. It was... Man, he is just a genius. I'm so excited for his future upcoming Superman of Smallville book. I think that's what it's called.
Very good. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. It's so good. In fact, somebody who bought the book tweeted me because Art was at Superman Celebration this year, and one of the fans got that issue signed. And I'm jealous of that fan because I haven't been able to get my copy of Art's cover signed. So.
That's cool. Well, again, he'll be at San Diego, so maybe you'll run into him if you're.
I need to do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
That was, that was one of the things. Another thing that I learned, like I said, kind of making the transition into creating my own book. That, again, most of these creators are professionals. You ask them, you don't have to be Marvel or DC. You can ask these creators, be like, "What would you charge me for a variant cover?" And they'll give you a price. And you can either say yes or no to the price. And if you say yes, then you'll have like a John Boy Myers cover, or you'll have a Art Baltazar cover, or a Bartel cover.
Cool.
I almost spaced on her last name. I apologize, Jen.
That's all right. You made it. That's great, man. And you're right. That's exactly right. And I know from guys like Tim Seeley, he got Joe Jusko to do a hack slash variant. It can happen. And again, if you can meet the price and stuff. Hey, man, these guys are making money. Everyone's trying to, get by, and it only helps spread their brand when they cross-promote on something like this. So that's excellent, man. No, I'm very happy. And again, I think the whole production was just slick, and it's a great trade, man. So I'm very excited to help you spread the word on Jupiter Jet. Get yours, have your comic store order yours, and enjoy the adventure, and then look for whatever the next announcement is for.
Please
Jason
do, yeah. We one thing we've encountered is that a lot of people get kind of thrown because Jupiter Jet is an all ages book, but we say it's all ages like Pixar is all ages.
Sure.
So your grandma can enjoy it, your 5-year-old can enjoy it, but a 40-year-old man can enjoy it as well. There's just like Pixar, there's something to enjoy in that book. That's specifically why we wrote it that way. We wrote it that way because most of the books from the big two, I feel you can't do that with anymore. You cannot hand it to your grandma and your 6-year-old little boy and a 40-year-old, and they all enjoy it.
Very few.
Yeah, very, very few. And so we wanted to make it this book that dads could enjoy with their daughters and sons could enjoy with their moms, and everyone will get something exciting from it.
Well, and also interesting timing because as we're recording, was it last week was the anniversary for The Rocketeer.
Mm-hmm.
And this book has a lot of Rocketeer in it as well in the best ways. So I think fans of that will appreciate it. And that's a product that was, as I was pointing out, talking about it on social media, kind of mismarketed. And I think this thing is a good, like you said, all ages product, but it has a lot of good action in it, and I think story elements and characters that all ages will appreciate, definitely.
And I just want to say to anybody that has already picked up Jupiter Jet and is listening to this podcast, thank you so much. And another thing that you learn throwing out a trade, my friend, you learn all these secrets when you cross over to a creator side. One of these secrets is that Amazon has an algorithm that if you have 50 or more so reviews on Amazon for your book, Amazon will promote it more. Amazon will show it more love and more features and stuff like that. So we're sitting right now at the time of this recording at 26. Okay. So even if you didn't buy the book on Amazon and you love Jupiter Jet, please go over and give it a review. And that goes across the board for all creators. I learned this from Alex Segura like last year, the co-president and chief of staff of Archie Comics over there. So I'd make sure that if you like a creator's books, not even mine, any creator's books, prose, comics, go to Amazon and give it a review because it does actually make a difference.
That's cool to know. And I mean, as you know, from a podcasting standpoint, we can never crack the iTunes algorithm, so it's nice to get some knowledge from the Amazon side. So that's
the same thing, yeah.
There you go.
It's the same kind of weird algorithm.
There you go. Good share, Jace. I like that. That was excellent, man. Well, with the time left, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind getting into some other things. Well, first of all, you mentioned...
Let's go into everything.
Attaboy. Well, I do. I'm sure listeners are curious. You were a big part of DC Access and, one of their main hosts. And I know that you've left the company.
Yes. Yes, we have parted ways. That happened back in February. I have no ill will towards DC. I still love them. I was super, super excited about their Walmart Comics announcement. Because,
how about it? Yeah.
Dude, that's, let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Because my first comic book I ever bought was bought in a Walmart. Because the area where I was from, in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, there were no comic book shops where I was.
Yep.
There were no big cities within 2 hours of me. So, Walmart had a rack. Walmart had comics. That's where I bought my first Batman 466. Batman's tied to the bottom of the rocket. I remember that issue. I bought many issues of Invincible Iron Man. That's where I bought Ron Mars' Kyle Rayner Green Lantern run.
Sure.
Grant Morrison's JLA, that's where I bought that, was from a Walmart. So the fact that comic books are going back to a Walmart, because back in the day, dude, when they had that same rack, in the toy section of my Walmart anyways, they would have these little displays where you could buy 10 comic books sort of like bundled together for $5.
Sure.
And they had tons of them. And it was all like a grab bag. It was like a little bit of DC, a little bit of Marvel, and sometimes there would be like some Youngblood in there or Wildcats.
Funny.
I would buy the crap out of them.
Sure.
And I had family members give them to me as gifts. And there was always little treasure troves. Half the reason why I know all these weird comic book runs, like the is it Mike Parobeck, Justice Society of America? Did I say that name right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
The only reason I know about that run is because there was an issue stuck in one of those packs.
That was a fun run. Absolutely. Those were all the solo, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They had just come back, and they sort of had like a DC animated style to them. But
very much so.
I thought it was. I ate that stuff up. I loved it.
Well, and it was reminiscent of their 40s artists and everything. The Erwin Hastings and the like that were more cartoony and not not as realistic. But yeah, go on.
So I feel DC making this step back into Walmart is a genius idea, and the idea that they're going to reprint a bunch of old stuff and follow it sequentially, I think is genius. Now, I saw a lot of retailers get mad by the idea of the exclusivity of Tom King's Superman and Brian Michael Bendis's Batman.
Right.
I get it, but from a business standpoint, I bet that's the only reason why Walmart said yes. Now, I have no idea. This is just me talking. So that would be my guess of why Walmart signed on. And a lot of I saw retailers got mad about that. I guess my response to that would be, well, you guys have like 100 issues of Marvel and DC that are exclusive to you every single month. Why would 4 stories make a difference?
Yeah, I do see. I understand the vendor's point of view. I understand Walmart's point of view as well. This, it's obviously having a new piece of content, and certainly the creators they've decided to put on the various heroes does make it attractive, and I can appreciate vendors going, oh man, well, we obviously sell the hell out of that as well. I'm just shrugging. It's fine. I think in the long run, DC will find a way to get that product into the regular direct market as well.
Oh, 100%. Like we're all fooling ourselves if a year from now we don't have a trade of the first 12 story. They're going to do it.
Of course. Which
is another reason why I think it's like, yeah, they'll have that story. It's just going to be in the Walmart for the first year. It's the same thing as like what they do with the digital comics. Injustice has its digital chapters first, and then you get a print issue of the digital chapters.
That's true. No, you're right.
So it's the same thing. It's just a different market. You got to do stuff to jazz up different markets. I don't know. I think it's an exciting idea because and with more and more comic book shops closing down, I know there are kids out there that are watching YouTube videos, looking at Twitter, hungry for comic books, and they cannot get to a comic book store.
Absolutely, man. No, absolutely. And I feel that way about the digital stores as well. So if Walmart can be a brick and mortar destination, and as you say, those bundles that they used to sell, God, I mean, I'm from the era when there was 3 comics for $1 or whatever, and it was the same thing. And you're right. I think that stuff can really impact a reader, even if it is like half a story. And even these, that's another complaint too, I think, from readers, is that they are going to be episodic as far as the reprint stuff. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I mean, I used to get those bundles as well, and would read a Hellstrom comic, and it would definitely be a middle chapter of a story, having no idea where it came from. But I was still intrigued enough that it was a cool little piece of the story, and made me want to seek out more. So no, I think this is a good thing, and I'm excited, man. And I come from that original generation of 100-page spectaculars. That's how I learned a lot about the earlier decades of the Silver and Golden Age of DC. The stuff before my time, and I was reading Justice Society stories in those JLA 100-page spectaculars. So I mean, it was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's nothing but a good opportunity. And again, it's going to expose a lot of these characters and runs that I think a lot of these people that are walking through Walmart probably have no idea about.
No, I agray. Absolutely.
So
yeah, I'm really excited. It's really going to expose the product to a bunch of new readers. And I think this is a good thing, and really also the young age stuff that DC is experimenting with. Again, I think they're going in the right directions, and they're trying to come up with new ways of presenting comics to different readers, and just get more people interested in comics again.
I agree. Yeah. So in a long about before we got to talking about Walmart, and I completely derailed you.
It's all right, man.
I split from DC. It was due to contract issues. We couldn't agree on certain contract things, so we parted ways. And, they're an awesome company, and Tiffany Smith and Whitney Moore are still holding down the fort. And they're awesome, and they'll be great. And new horizons, new things.
And you and Ash continue to generate your own videos and stuff, and your own podcasts, obviously.
Exactly.
Geek History Lesson is up and running still, and kicking ass.
Yeah, and I still do like 2 mini videos a week actually on my own YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jawin. We just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, so
fantastic.
Cool.
And
it's okay.
Oh, just an okay. Interesting. All right.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all I will say is this. Marvel to me had 2 huge home runs this year.
Hell yeah.
With Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. I think they knocked them both out of the park. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a solid hit to the outfield that gets the runner to third base.
Okay.
But after the amazingness after Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther, to me, there was no way Ant-Man and the Wasp was going to match those movies because it's Ant-Man.
I can appreciate that. Is it as good as the first Ant-Man movie, or is it?
To be honest with you, I enjoyed it more than the first Ant-Man.
Okay. Well, that's okay then.
I enjoyed it more than the first Ant-Man. But, I'm just not a big fan of Ant-Man. So there you go.
Okay. I wonder if this is going to be, and I believe this is the correct year, 2013, another 2013, where, the easy metaphor is I love pizza, but if I'm eating pizza every day, I might get sick of pizza. And I'm wondering if there might be some superhero film fatigue in that, hey, we want to see everything, but it's coming like you're in a snowball fight, another metaphor. And you're just getting pelted, and I'm just like...
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen most everybody else really, really likes it. So I think I might be in the minority on this one.
Okay.
But at the same time, when I walked out of Avengers Infinity War, my head was immediately said, give me the next one, or give me the next one this Christmas. Like, you making me wait a year for this movie is insane. Also... You're going to put 2 movies in between it that may or may not have anything to do with the next one? I don't care. Give me the next one.
What's the one after Ant-Man?
Captain Marvel.
Oh, that's right. Of course it is.
Yeah. So we get Captain Marvel next year, I think in February, and then
May and
then it's Avengers Infinity. This is So we have 3 Marvel movies a year, and Ant-Man and the Wasp already in July or June, or July, yes, is our last one of the year.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, I
whatever. I mean, we're getting 3 Marvel movies a year. What are we complaining about?
Well,
right?
yeah. Well, I'll confess, I have not seen Solo yet. I haven't seen Deadpool yet, and it's just because I've been too busy. And I'm actually hoping to see them this week before the 4th of July, because I still have Incredibles and Ant-Man to watch as well.
Oh man, Incredibles is so good.
That's what I'm hearing.
So I've seen it twice already. It's the best. I just feel it's the closest I'm ever going to get to a Jack Kirby, Stan Lee Fantastic Four movie on the screen.
I understand. Well, certainly that's how the first one felt. Go on.
Yeah, this one is the same way. This one, now I'll say the same. This is the opposite of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think the second Incredibles is a slight step down from the first movie, but it can never match the surprise of seeing that first one. This one felt like reading your favorite second issue of that series, the comic book series that you love.
Okay.
And you're not surprised by it because you've already read the first issue,
right,
but you still enjoy every single part of it.
That's cool. Gilbert Gottfried just had the guy that scored both movies. And he's
Giacchino.
Yes, and he also obviously did Doctor Strange and did Star Trek, did the first JJ movie, and I think probably the other 2 as well. Certainly Beyond.
Have you listened to some of Giacchino's music? I see Michael Giacchino right now, for me, is the best film composer out there of anybody.
I kind of think you're right, man. I really do. You're right. I mean, he's very versatile, and I think well, he gets and really even in this interview with Gilbert Gottfried, he's checking names. Hoyt Curtin, who was the great Hanna-Barbera composer of the classic 50s and 60s stuff, even into the 70s. So he gets it, and was talking about collaborating with Brad Bird on Incredibles and doing Doctor Strange and some of these other things. And even, like I said, the Star Trek music. There's, you walk into Star Trek where you've already got Alexander Courage doing the original series theme and Jerry Goldsmith doing the Next Generation and the first motion picture of the original casts. That classic anthem. And it's like, how do you honor that but still be original? And I really think, the music in the J.J. Star Trek movies are one of the best things about the films. And again,
it's amazing.
They evoke classic Trek, but they are their own thing.
He's my pick to replace John Williams for Star Wars.
He talked a lot about John Williams, and I didn't know this, I guess, is it Star Tours? I suck when it comes to Disneyland and Disney World because it's been a long time since. I've never been to Orlando. I've been to Anaheim twice. But I think, isn't it the Star Tours or whatever that they do that are kind of Star Tours?
Yeah, Star Tours. Did he do some of the music for Star Tours?
He did, and he took a lot of the John Williams music and made it into the kind of loungy stuff that I guess you hear when you're in line.
Oh, that's great. See, because the only Star Wars movie he has composed so far is Rogue One, and I thought his Rogue One score was amazing.
Agreed.
I actually thought his Spider-Man Homecoming score was great, too.
Agreed.
I've yet to hear a Giacchino score that I hate. And one of the best ones out there is his music for War for the Planet of the Apes, which is surprising because you're like, oh, I don't think a music from a monkey movie is going to be any good. But a lot of that movie, Caesar doesn't talk. And that music, that small little piano theme, takes you through it. And also he has some cues back to the original score from the original Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes movie. It's great. It's so good. The other great thing about Michael Giacchino is I briefly got to meet him last year at San Diego Comic-Con, and I fanboyed hard on him, talking about Lost and talking about Star Trek. And I'll tell you what, he's an uber nerd.
Yes.
So he's one of us, my friend.
Absolutely. No, and he talks about his very serious love for the original Planet of the Apes films and everything. So no, he's like I said, Gilbert Gottfried's one of us as well. And I mean, that's the thing. At his podcast, he definitely...
You may call him Gilbert. I call him Mr. Spitlick.
He was a fine Mixia Spitlick. Absolutely. How do you say it? Say it again.
I say Mixel Spitlick. I said it wrong when I said it the first time.
No. Well, I they had those power records where they would have a comic book and an actual 33 or a 45, and you would play like this audio soundtrack to the comic book. And that's when I learned how to say Mixia Spitlick because... Oh,
it's interesting. So you put the Mixie in it.
Well, they broke it down in the old Silver Age comics. They pronounced Mixia Spitlick. And
in Superman the Animated Series, they say Mixel Spitlick. And they break it down, too, and they have Gilbert say it like he breaks it down as well. So I guess, just whatever.
Oh, sure. Well, and
then Supergirl says it differently, too, I think. I think Supergirl says it completely differently.
Well, and I think, I forget who did the voice. It might have been Kirk Allen, the original radio Bud Collyer, rather. But he would say Mixpickle. Mixpickle. And he'd be all angry.
Pickle?
That's how he would say it. And then Mixia Spitlick would, of course, correct him. But, I don't know. And maybe that was a way to get him to say Kilpixlim or however you say the word backwards and everything. Too funny, man. You're killing me. Well, while we're talking...
What else can we nerd out about? Let's do this.
Well, of course, lots of Star Trek news, both rumor and fact. First of all, the fact, interesting that the showrunners of Discovery left, and now Alex Kurtzman running things, and not only the Discovery series, but talking big about other mini-series and even potentially animated series. And it's like, well, yeah, it's about goddamn time.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, man. Star Trek, my friend.
Talk to me.
Ugh. I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore.
Interesting. Talk to me.
I don't know, and I love we've talked many hours on Star Trek, and you know how much I love it. I have a growing Riker collection on my current job desk right now.
Nice.
But dude, they fired their showrunners. They're shooting season 2 right now.
Yes.
They're somewhere in episode 2, 3, or 4 of shooting.
Yeah.
And they have fired the showrunners. Now, many other shows have done that as well. It's kind of like Ron Howard coming in on Solo. Yeah. But on a television show, Your showrunners are your captains. They're the ones telling you when to start, when to finish, what to do, what's the theme, what's the tone, what's the twist. Everything is the showrunner's approval. So what the hell were they doing that CBS said, get out of the building?
Well, you read the reports. They were apparently abusive to their writer's staff. I mean, that's the word. That was the
it's I have so in my new current job, which I still don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is.
Okay.
So I'll just say, but I have gotten into some connections of some people that worked or have worked for Star Trek Discovery.
Okay.
And they have confirmed everything that is in those reports.
Well, there you go. Okay.
So, yes, it apparently is quite a terrible and despicable working situation from everything that I have been told.
Wow.
And that's sad, man, because, you know, I don't know about you or what. You know, your love has always been radio, correct? Like, you know, getting on the radio, talking to the people, talking to the audience,
sure.
Correct?
Yeah, no, I'm doing what I wanted to do as far as broadcasting. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when you got to broadcasting, like when you got to your first broadcasting job, didn't you just feel joy and love? You're like, wow, I'm here. I can't believe it.
Yes, I did.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
So I felt that way on a couple of my jobs, too, where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. And you just kind of sort of become ecstatic and joyful. Now, Star Trek Discovery, one, if you're lucky enough to be a television writer, what a ball of joy. You're getting to write television. You're getting to create on such a massive scale that millions of people are going to see. Okay, that should just fill you with joy.
Sure.
But two, if you're working on a show like Star Trek with that amazing legacy, shouldn't that double down the joy?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be like, oh, man, I'm on the bridge now. This is amazing. So for the fact that these showrunners turned it into, oh, screw you, F you, and out the airlock with you is insane.
Agreed. Well, and also, Star Trek itself has this history of difficult writers' rooms, so you'd think they'd learn from the past.
Right?
You know, and I mean, because again... and we probably have talked about Chaos on the Bridge, the documentary about Next Generation and its growing pains. You know, so yeah, maybe this is another similar situation. But again, it's so ironic. Or also the 50-Year Mission, the oral history, two great books that I can't recommend enough.
They're amazing, but they're also sad to read.
They are sad to read because, again, it turns out that the writers that were, you know, the uber nerdiest about Star Trek and were so excited to finally tell their stories, they were almost ostracized. And they're the geeks. Don't do that. We don't want writers who love Star Trek. And I understand, I get it from a macro standpoint that maybe there would be too much respect to canon, and therefore you wouldn't come up with original stories and innovative stories because of a level of respect for what's come before. But I also think that, I don't know, I don't hear that in Star Wars writers' rooms. I mean, you know, we got it a little bit, I guess, with the solo directors, but, you know, I mean, it seemed like everyone kind of is on the same page and moving in the right direction.
And also, I mean, you and I are huge Star Trek fans, and John, please tell me, how much did they actually follow canon in Star Trek Discovery Season 1? Because as far as I'm concerned, they're in a completely new reboot. They're not in the same universe.
Yeah, well, and again, it's going to be interesting. They claim that they will explain canon in the second season. We'll see. I'm shrugging. Whatever.
I'm shrugging as well.
But again, you know, it's okay. I mean, and really, man, it seemed to me, episode to episode, I had more problems with Discovery than you and Ash did. And I can only say that with my frustration, I'm still like, hey, I'm still on board. I'm still coming back. And, I mean, my hope is, much like some of the clunky early Next Generation episodes, I can't watch Season 1, most of Season 1.
Oh, you're true. And Season 2, yeah.
Well, you know, and honestly, I like Season 2 a little bit better. I'd say, you know, I think there's some Measure of a Man good episode, the Data Sherlock Holmes, and I even like Dr. Pulaski being a jerk. I'm okay with Dr. Pulaski. Or Riker's dad, that's a good episode.
I always saw Dr. Pulaski as Bones with the dress.
Yes, absolutely.
It's basically Bones.
You know, and she's such... Dinah Mulder, first of all, has her...
She's a great actress. She's a great actress.
Great actress, ties to the original series in a couple of roles. L.A. Law was amazing in L.A. Law.
There are so many Star Trek TNG and especially TNG guest actors that were on L.A. Law.
I didn't know that.
And that's also a Paramount show. So I literally think that every time they wanted to cast somebody new, they just walked over to the soundstage right next to him, knocked on the door and said, "Who's not shooting tomorrow? You, Corbin Burnson, get on the show."
When Corbin Burnson had amazing hair.
Yeah. Because remember, he was a Q.
Yes, indeed. That's a great episode. I work overnights, and a lot of times I've got BBC America on in my studio with the sound down, and they were showing that episode where Corbin Burnson was on.
I was waiting for you to tell me that BBC America was now airing L.A. Law, and I was like, really?
Well, you got Alex Kingston, River Song. That was her. That was one of her early shows.
I had no idea she was. I knew Jimmy Smith was on that show.
Of course, yeah.
Oh man, I didn't know Alex Kingston was on that show.
Yep.
By the way, she is stunning in real life. If you've never seen her in real life, she's amazing.
I bet, and that doesn't surprise me. And again, man, she was lovely then. So that's she's still. That's great to hear. Malin Ackerman is my face-to-face where I'm like, oh my god, what charisma. And really, I'm like, and luckily I held my shit together at the Watchmen junket when I was talking to her. But
oh, that's cool, man.
No, she was great. Yeah, that was that. So there's my experience with a lovely actor, and it's just like da.
You just brought up something that I want to ask you about.
Talk to me.
So you again have the ability that you were alive when Watchmen was hitting the stands.
Sure. Yes, I was.
Well, I was alive too. I wasn't cognizant.
I understand. Talk to me. Yes, no, of course. That was my college years. Go on.
What are your feelings on this new Watchmen TV show that might not be connected a sequel? They haven't really explained it, that it's a sequel, not a sequel, connected, not connected. What do you feel about this? Can a Watchmen TV show like this work?
I think that universe is very interesting. And I like that Damon Lindelof is thinking along those lines, because that way it would be interesting to see what happened the day after, if that's the plan, or if we're going back to when the Minutemen were or not was it the Minutemen? Not the Minutemen.
Yeah, it's the Minutemen.
Okay.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's the Minutemen. The first group's the Minutemen, the second group's the Watchmen.
That's right, of course. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly where they're placing this, but I do think it's an interesting universe to play in, and I'm okay with it. In the same way that Westworld is so different than the great James Brolin, Richard Benjamin, Yul Brynner movie.
Agreed.
And I mean really, man, if younger listeners have not watched the Westworld movie because it's the 70s, I don't know. It's a tremendous film, and really goes from a comedy to a suspense film at the drop of a hat. And it's really nice how that all sets up, and I think it holds up very well.
I agree. I however, do not recommend watching the sequel, Future World.
Yeah.
Don't watch that movie.
Blythe Denner and Peter Fonda. Ooh. Ooh.
I was waiting. I was like crossing my fingers, hoping that Future World was going to somehow be introduced on the new HBO show. It hasn't happened so far. But I want them to do it, because I'm like, if anybody can redeem that movie, it's Jonathan Nolan.
Could be. But yeah, I mean that's why I'm okay with it. And also I'm a little more forgiving to the movie. I mean, the movie it's not perfect.
I am too.
But I like it better than a lot of people. Oh, that's good.
I will honestly admit that I really did not like it the first time I saw the Watchmen Zack Snyder movie. But having watched the director's cut, which I do think is better,
yes,
and seen it several times, I do think it's a much better movie than people give it credit for. And I've actually learned to appreciate it as the years have gone by.
I'm interested now to see, much in the same way that Batman v Superman is the director's cut of that was a better cut than what we first got. It's interesting that we may see a Justice League cut.
I hope. Do you think? I don't think we'll ever see a Justice League cut. Do you think we're going to see a Justice League cut?
That was and again, I'm reading Bleeding Cool, so maybe I should be,
Sorry, Rich.
Exactly. So
it's all good. I like Rich. It's all good.
Well, and again, hey, back to Star Trek. How about these hot rumors? I would love
hot takes. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Well, good Lord. First of all, I was thrilled when the Tarantino rumors started, and all of a sudden Patrick Stewart's like, I want to be in a Tarantino movie. I'll be Jean-Luc Picard in a Tarantino Star Trek. And we all went, yes, please.
Yes, he would, because Tarantino is one of these actors that he basically shepherds actors into Oscars.
Yes.
Can you imagine? We already know that we live in the darkest timeline. We do. And if you haven't accepted that by now, then you're clearly not watching the news or seeing that, the fact that we have 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Wonder Woman and Ant-Man, 2 Ant-Man sequels. We are in the darkest Bizarro timeline. So if we are in the darkest Bizarro timeline, that naturally, to me, says that there is a good possibility that Patrick Stewart could win his only Oscar for playing Captain Jean-Luc Picard in a Tarantino Star Trek movie.
I'd like to thank the Federation for this award. That'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic. This is, God, now you see, here's my age with Saturday Night Live. Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest used to do these janitor characters. And they had one episode where it was before the Oscars. And they're like, hey, let's take those results from Price and Waterhouse and switch them over so that the best picture could be, and they go, Avenging Angel, which is a horrible 80s, revenge movie and stuff. And we could be in those kind of dark times. And
in the world we live in, dude, anything is possible. So buckle up.
Jesus.
And then Ian McKellen will run up on stage. He'll get Best Supporting Actor for playing the Klingon villain.
Ooh, that'd be good. Hey,
right?
Hey, man, Christopher Plummer did it. There's already a Shakespearean precedent, so why not?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. The Tarantino Star Trek movie is such an interesting idea, and I understand if you're Paramount why you go for it.
Sure.
And I sure as hell want to read that script. Do I think that movie will ever happen? I actually don't think it ever will. I don't think it'll happen. It's too ludicrous, I think, to exist. But I would watch that movie. I would be there opening night just to see what the hell is it.
Well, and I don't know how this new Mission Impossible will do, but Paramount has really been hurting as far as taking a lot
Isn't
of gamble.
Paramount always hurting?
Well,
and
again, I can appreciate that as far as recent memory goes. I don't know, but yeah, it certainly seems of all the major studios, and while we're watching all these mergers happening and stuff, Paramount seems to be the one that gambles, and the gambles don't pay off.
I think this new Mission Impossible is going to blow huge. I really do. I've seen some of the CinemaCon footage around the bend from various people. It looks amazing. Henry Cavill's really good in it. The mustache looks great. The mustache that killed Justice League looks great. But it's exciting. It's an exciting movie, and I'm Christopher McQuarrie is a hell of a director writer. He's one hell of a combination, and this to me tells me something that he's the only director to have been brought back for this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I agree. It is interesting though, because obviously what used to be able to be the right combination for a blockbuster film doesn't always work anymore. And man, who I forget which publication just did that. Was it Variety? I forget which one that talked about, how Will Smith always was a guaranteed summer hit.
Yes.
And those days are gone. And
no, those days are long gone.
And Adam Sandler, I think, was the other one. And of course, those days are very long gone.
That is the thing. The star does not determine the blockbuster anymore. And Tom Cruise is definitely from that era, but Mission Impossible is his only franchise when you think about it. Yeah. And Mission Impossible so far has been a very successful franchise.
Well, Jack Reacher too, but yeah, I think you're right.
I think the second Jack Reacher bombed.
Yeah.
It did not do well.
Yeah.
Because it was a terrible movie. But the first Jack Reacher is a good movie. Why? Because it's written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie.
There you go too. Good point.
So that's the secret sauce of that one.
That's a very good point. But no, you're right. I mean, and that's what's interesting. Hell, I'm a huge Spencer for Hire fan and the Robert Parker novels, and was excited about the Netflix news that there's going to be a Spencer Netflix series. Mark Wahlberg as Spencer.
What? Seriously?
Yeah, which I don't understand either as far as casting. But I got to tell you, I do remember those if they were the 90s or early 2000s when Joe Mantegna played Spencer, and he was completely physically wrong. Spencer's first of all not Italian. I love Joe Mantegna, Chicago's very own. Tremendous actor, and did fine if you walked into that. And the reason why it comes to mind is in the same way with Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher, if you read the novels, he's supposed to be basketball tall. Well, that's not Tom Cruise. Yeah,
Lee Child in the novels, I love those novels, by the way, describes him as a man you don't want to meet in an alleyway. And that is not Tom Cruise.
That's not Tom Cruise, man. No,
it's not Tom Cruise at all. But the one thing about this Mission Impossible movies and seeing the new footage and stuff like that has made me decide is that I'm very certain now that we are going to see Tom Cruise die on camera. I think it is going to happen. I think he's just crazy enough that there is a shot in the trailer of this new Mission Impossible movie where he is driving like a bat out of hell on a motorcycle, and he's driving down the street. The camera is like rigged to his bike. You can tell he's looking back at the camera. He's not wearing a helmet, so you can tell it's Tom Cruise. A car comes out of nowhere, and he T-bones it and flips over the car. Tom Cruise, billion-dollar Scientologist, flipping over this car in Paris. He's good. This man, we are going to watch this man die on camera because his stunts are going to be crazier and crazier. I mean, the last movie, he was like, yeah, I'm going to hang outside of a plane. Yeah. You take off.
Yeah.
No sane person does that.
No, he is Hollywood's Evel Knievel. He really is.
Oh, that's a great way to describe him. That's a good term.
Well, again, from my era. I remember watching Evil's Bones break on live TV. Absolutely, man.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's the sad truth, man. Good Lord. Those documentaries are incredible, and they're very vivid. Very vivid.
What was is there a specific one that you remember where you're like, oh, my God?
The one where it was, I want to say, where he jumped over the semis in London.
I've seen that one. I've seen the YouTube.
He falls over the handlebars, and the bike runs over him, and he broke his his hip or whatever it was, but still got up to his feet and kind of hobbled over to the microphone and thanked everyone before he passed out. I mean, it's that one. I mean, and of course, Snake River. I remember that well as well.
What one was Snake River?
Snake River Canyon was his. It wasn't even a motorcycle. He kind of created kind of a rocket that he rode. And he was supposed to, first he wanted to do the Grand Canyon. That was his ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, somebody, showed him the tape measure and said, yeah, that's not, going to happen.
Physics will not work that way.
You're going down, Evil. This isn't a good idea. So they tried the Snake River, and it was a failed attempt. And it was a smaller canyon, So, and then he closed out, one of his last jumps was here in Chicago, where he did the Happy Days Fonzie jump over the shark, over a pool with a shark, and that happened in Chicago. That was an easy one for him. But yeah, the one that I really remember was with the semis and the bike running over him. After.
To betray my age, the only thing that I can think about on television that is even close to comparable is when David Copperfield used to do all those television specials.
Yeah.
And I remember when he made the Statue of Liberty disappear, I freaked out. I remember asking my mom how they were going to bring it back and would the United States government be mad?
I'd like to protest Mr. Copperfield's trick. Not that I believe in the statue anymore. Yikes. Yeah, man. Well, I'm trying to think what other nerd news as we wrap.
I don't know what can we talk about here? What has been happening?
Well, like
lately?
I said, I haven't seen Solo. Everyone I know who's seen it loved it. So I'm certainly not a hater, and I'm just
I'm not in that crowd. I did not love it.
Oh, okay.
I am not in that crowd.
All right.
I'll say this. To me, Solo is the Star Wars movie where, man, everybody's gonna be like, this guy just doesn't like Disney. So I do love Disney. Because Gargoyles is one of my favorite things ever, and I can't believe they haven't rebooted
Hilarious.
it. So, anyways, back up a little bit to Solo. Solo is just the most unnecessary movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Everything that you see in that movie, we have been told about in another movie. And when we finally see it, it's just not interesting because we know exactly how it's going to go.
Okay.
And to me, Solo is the Star Wars movie that made Star Wars not special for me anymore. And I know a lot of people are about what about the prequels? Well, I'm a big Obi-Wan Kenobi fan, and lightsaber fights to me are still cool. Mm-hmm. And every one of those movies had that. There are no lightsaber battles in Solo, spoilers. So I don't know. Nothing about it seems special to me. And the entire time I was watching this movie, I kept saying to myself, why didn't they combine this movie with the Boba Fett movie that we've all been dreaming about seeing since 1983, where it's Boba Fett going around being a badass? Why aren't we doing Smokey and the Bandit, where the Bandit is Solo and Smokey is Boba Fett?
That's hilarious.
Where's that movie?
That's a good idea. There you go.
Right?
We need you in that writer's room. There you go, Jason.
I'm telling you, man. Dave Filoni, call me up, my friend.
Do you like the guy who played Solo?
He was okay. I thought to me,
tough challenge, obviously.
Oh, 100%, man. There's whoever walked into that role was going to be very judged, and I feel I cannot remember the actor's name for the life of me.
I can never remember his name either. I liked him a lot in that Warren Beatty Howard Hughes movie.
Yes, he's great in Hail Caesar too,
and he's great. I was going to say the same thing. I thought he was terrific in Hail Caesar. So I am walking into this liking the kid. So
I thought he didn't figure out a way to get past impression.
Okay.
You know how Star Trek 2009, Chris Pine is not doing a William Shatner impression.
Agreed.
But
yes,
he has the energy of Kirk, and he has the attitude of Kirk.
Yes, the swagger, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, dead on. But he's not doing an impression of Shatner. Yeah, this kid leans way too much an impression. He does so much of an impression of Han Solo that he mumbles like Harrison Ford does now in real life.
It's like Andy Kaufman with Jim Carrey with Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Stuck in the role.
He's very mumbly, for my opinion. Yeah,
Yikes.
But everybody else in the movie is great. Donald Glover is great as Lando. I would love to see I'd love to see a Lando movie. Woody Harrelson's great as Beckett.
Cool.
Paul Bettany is great for his little scene as a reshoots thing as the new villain.
Yeah.
He's good, and then the Gulacy is great as well.
Cool.
They're all good. So it's just there's a good movie in there, but I don't feel, for me, I didn't see it. I didn't get what I needed out of a Star Wars movie because, again, Star Wars movies are events to me. They need to be special.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it wasn't special enough. It was just, hey, we're going to show you all the stuff that we always told you about. And to me, it kind of came off as a best hits clip show.
Interesting. All right, well, that'll be interesting as I walk into that, hopefully, before the 4th of July. I want to, I'm a little concerned about them saying, well, then maybe we're rushing these standalone movies. And it's like, well, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Hold on a second. Nobody said that just because you made one misfire. It was bound to happen. And also, again, I don't know. I want to see it and judge it for myself because I think these expectations...
Please do.
Well, of course, but I think these expectations are set way too high. It is a Star Wars movie. I'm shrugging, and I can appreciate it to a degree. But I also think, it's like, well, we only made $300 million. And I know they spent more than that on the movie.
Oh, they probably spent
$700 million.
Easily, because they basically reshot the movie completely.
Too. Yeah, that too. You're right.
Because just going off of the Directors Guild of America rules, you have to have shot, I believe it's somewhere between, the number I think is 75% of the movie.
You're right.
Has to be your footage to be directed by. And it says directed by Ron Howard. So that means he reshot 75% of the movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. And that is another thing that intrigues me. So how do you think he handled things as a director?
I think he did a good job. I think Ron Howard, one thing I like about Ron Howard is that all of his movies are well shot.
Yes. Solo is well shot. It's a beautiful movie. It's got great cinematography. The pacing is pretty good. The editing is good. He's solid. The biggest problem to me again with Solo was the idea, like, again, it's telling us stuff, it's showing us stuff we've already seen, and it's kind of structured like an late 80s, early 90s action movie. So there are no real twists or turns or surprises. And
modern audiences, I feel, we're pretty smart because of all the streaming television we see now. Where Game of Thrones, Lost, keep on name every mystery show. Like, audiences are pretty smart now. And I think if you just give them a 90s action movie or an 80s action movie, we know every twist, we know every turn, we know exactly how it's going to happen.
Agreed. And I think you're right about that. And again, that's where the blockbuster is right now, where it does has to compete with what they can do with streaming television. And we're at a really interesting point with entertainment, where
we are.
Where like the blockbuster films in general are kind of trying to find their footing in this new era of streaming television, where we get more complex story and characters, and the 13-hour streaming season versus the 2+ hour blockbuster film. What does it give us?
Think about this. The most successful film out there right now is Avengers: Infinity War.
Right.
Why is Avengers: Infinity War so successful? Because it is part 19. I'm not certain of the number. It is part 19 of the longest television season that you've ever seen on the movie screen.
Agreed.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
And the reason why we were blown away by that ending is because we spent 20 movies with these characters.
Yeah, agreed.
It's interesting because I was reading an article. I cannot remember who published it. It's a Variety, or it might have been the Rolling Stone, who said that they hated Avengers: Infinity War. Now, I don't agree with that statement. I loved Avengers: Infinity War because I admire the cojones they had to do that ending.
Agreed.
But they argued against it because they said that it was the death of film, because it's the idea of, they're just saying, television episodes. Every movie has to set up the next movie. Every movie can't be on its own. And that is an interesting, intriguing argument to me, because I love Avengers: Infinity War, but I understand that argument because when you look at it, it is just setting up Avengers 4 and Captain Marvel and XYZ. And then you look at a film like A Quiet Place, which is masterful and genius and so powerful. And that is a movie that if you made a sequel to it would ruin it.
Of course.
So I don't know. I see both sides of the argument. It's very interesting.
Well, I do too, but I also think that just as in the past, movies don't have to be one thing. And
agreed.
And just as you said, the only thing I would say about Infinity War, the only negative is I would warn someone that hasn't watched all the Marvel movies, well, don't walk into this without really knowing what's happened, because you are going to be disappointed, because you do need to have seen the other movies, because then you really do appreciate what they did, and different pieces of dialogue or even plot points that do pay off, that were seeds that were planted back in the first Iron Man movie. And I think that's terrific. But again, that's that style of movie. And like you say, Quiet Place is a good contrast to that. It is tough to find that audience for that, or, I'm sure you're aware, Jodie Foster complaining a couple months ago that the types of movies that she made are not the types of movies that are succeeding at the box office these days. And she's not sure what her place is, or the types of movies she wants to do in today's entertainment, atmosphere.
Yeah,
all legitimate
100%.
Concerns, but again, you change with the times. And again, I think now the onus is back on movies to, okay, what can you do with 2 hours? And you got to rethink things. And again, that's why the studios are rethinking their strategies as well. It's fascinating. It really is very interesting. And again, I don't. The good news is, then Jodie, I would say to her, and I think she's talking about doing it. In fact, Why the Last Man, as I understand, she talks for Why, which I think would be fantastic for her.
Oh, I think she'd be great as York's mother.
Absolutely.
I think that's perfect. That is perfect casting.
Yeah, it reminds me when Glenn Close turned to TV in the early 2000s after movies and had such success with The Shield, and I forget the court show that she did for FX as well.
Oh man, you blew my.
Damages.
I love The Shield, and I just forgot. I even forgot that she was on that show. That show is amazing.
Yeah, and Damages was the court show too. And I mean that's
yes,
the thing.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean that's again. I think these binge watching shows. I mean, isn't Sigourney Weaver on Legion? I'm blanking already.
I haven't seen the second season, so if she is, I don't know.
Okay, well, I thought she was even in the first season, too, because I'll confess I haven't watched the second season yet either.
Oh, no. Sigourney is not in the first season.
All right, then it's some other... Was it Jean Smart? It was Jean Smart.
It's Jean Smart, yes. And then Jermaine Clement is in that season as well.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, designing women's Jean Smart, yes.
She's always... It's true. That was her sitcom. But I have to say, hell, even... Wasn't it Garden State? Yeah, she's Peter Skarsgård's mother.
Yeah, Skarsgård. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. She's a terrific actress beyond, what she did in Designing Women. I always thought, I mean, that's honestly like that, or
that's gonna be the top of her obituary, though. I mean, honestly,
it's like it was Fred Gwynn and Herman Munster, exactly.
Yeah, and Delta Burke, is that right?
Delta Burke, absolutely. Annie Potts, of course.
Yep, Annie Potts is such a treasure. She's in a new movie. I just saw a trailer for her. She's in some new independent movie, and I saw her profile, and then they cut away from her, and I was like, "Is that Annie Potts?"
Bendis got her to do Ghostbusters. What do you want for his answering machine? I do know that.
Oh my God! Was Annie Potts just like over at his house? How did this happen?
I forget what the circumstances were, but he got to meet Annie Potts, and he said, "You got to record Ghostbusters. What do you want for me?" And she did it.
All right, John. I'm gonna because I'm also an interviewer too. I'm gonna ask you another question here, my friend.
No, it's always a pleasure, buddy.
Is there a comic book thing? Can be a book, can be a movie, because you talk to a lot of creators, you talk to a lot of smart, genius men and women. What's the comic book thing out there that excites you the most? Is there a comic book out there, a movie, a television show? Like, what's the thing that you're just like, man, I really want to see this, or I'm very curious about this?
Well, honestly, the Y television adaptation does intrigue me, and I think will be a big, huge hit. And I've been waiting for it ever since they were talking about a Y movie. I think that would really be groundbreaking. The Watchmen sequel interests me. Doomsday Clock I'm enjoying Doomsday Clock. I think it's chugging along just fine. I am a little happy that they're opening the purse strings as far as the DC universe, and because of the fact that it's going to take longer than they expected, that it's okay that the JSA and Shazam will likely appear before the end of the Doomsday Clock. That's okay.
I think that's a good option.
And Jeff Johns getting his own production deal, I think, is a really smart move. Where sometimes it's just like in the broadcast business when they made Edward R. Murrow an executive, and it's like, no, man, this guy's a broadcaster. Let him do his thing. And the same with Jeff. Jeff's a storyteller. Let him develop some TV shows on his own. Let him get back to the creative side, because I think when you put him in the executive office, you were just taking away his best tools, and because he was overseeing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm intrigued by that. Let's see. I'm really happy Mark Waid is back on Doctor Strange. I loved his miniseries, and I haven't cracked open. I bought the first 2 issues of his current run, but I know he's getting back to where he was doing it a couple of years ago and stuff. And taking nothing away from Donny Cates, who I thought did an excellent job with.
Oh, Donny Cates' run and Jason Aaron's run was great too. Absolutely. And I'm really excited about all the various different musical chairs. Scotty Young doing Deadpool right now. I can't think of a better combination of hero and creator. And Bendis is kicking ass with Superman. I'm really excited. Can't wait to see what the final shoe will be with King and the marriage of Catwoman and Batman. It's a very good time for comic books in the mainstream. And then also, as Brew Baker and Sean Phillips wrap up Kill or Be Killed, they're looking forward to their graphic novel coming out in a few months. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of shit. Kelly Sue joining DC and the Black Label, or whatever the hell it's called.
I'm very intrigued to read her Wonder Woman. Yeah.
So I'm bummed that we're not getting Fractions Jimmy Olsen. I think that would have been fantastic.
Oh, is that definite now?
Well, I don't. Well, maybe things have changed and maybe they're reconsidering. I hope that's the case.
I honestly don't know. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, well, I know he pitched them something, and I thought I heard that it didn't make it.
All right.
So we'll see. But no, I think honestly, and I really do. I think Marvel is. Despite their recent, nicks and bruises that they took, I think that CB and company, I think they're really, going in good directions, and I think their future is, looking good as well. So no, I think it's a really good time right now, comic book wise. There's a lot of things that I'm excited about, and it's hurting me in the wallet saying that because I don't get the comics I used to.
The one that I am very, very excited for, and a lot of this has to do with listening to your podcast, I am so excited to read Dan Slott's Fantastic Four.
Agreed.
So when he was on your show about a year ago, and you guys had like a 4-hour episode or something like that, or you had a 2-parter. It was really long.
It was really long, and
it
it was a 2-parter. Go on.
Yeah, he talked a lot about the Fantastic Four, and when you did the Spider-Man wrap-up, where he just randomly cold called you, he spent more time almost talking about the Fantastic Four than he did to Spider-Man. So to me, I don't know. Dan Slott, the thing I loved about his Spider-Man run so much is how much he expanded the world of Peter Parker.
Yes.
And, Peter, before Dan, had kind of got stuck in a rut where it was like, okay, he's always going to be poor, and he's always going to work for the Daily Planet, and he's always going to do this. And Dan, I love how he was like, no, he's going to be a scientist. Yep. Now he's going to be a CEO, and now he's going to be this guy. That you don't have to be stuck in this rut. And that's what the Fantastic Four is to me, is opening new worlds, exploring new worlds, new concepts, new things. So to take that mindset and give it to the Fantastic Four, I'm really excited to see. And also, he just loves Benjamin J. Grimm as much as I do, and I can't wait. His Thing miniseries from back in the day is like one of the hidden gems of Marvel Comics. So I'm excited to see what he does when he has it full time.
I couldn't agree more. And again, that's why we spent so much time talking about the times that he has written the Fantastic Four in the past. He gets the four. And I'm really glad that they're they're finally bringing back a Fantastic Four book, because in the right hands, they're great to read. They're the best. And again, like you said earlier, the Incredibles are as close as we've been getting to really good Fantastic Four stories. But there really is. There's just something great about that. And I know, Dan's not afraid to expand the universe of these characters. And Iron Man too. I think these franchises are in great hands. And yet Dan himself is, I think, kind of one of those secret weapons of Marvel that gets overlooked. And again, because it's like, well, yeah, it's Spider-Man, so it should be good. So it's like kind of like we expected and we kind of demanded. So when it is, I think he was almost being overlooked in terms of, again, 10.5 years of doing Spider-Man and doing really interesting things with Spider-Man. And like I said, that one podcast was fascinating to listen to, where the one host is like, oh, you please, Dan Slott. And the other 3 hosts are like, are you nuts? And they really presented a very fair case of really explaining the different villains and the like you said, Horizon Labs and really working on the character. And it's like, when all is said and done, Dan's really going to have a run that you have to compare to Roger Stern and some of the best Jerry Conway and Wolfman and all the great Spider-Man writers. And it's like, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You have to. He's in there. He definitely have to compare him. It's in there.
No, it's an interesting time. And again, I'm excited to see what Hickman is going to do now that he's back at Marvel. That's, I think, really interesting. And I think honestly, I think both companies, with the musical chairs that have happened recently, I think, they're in really good positions. And then again, I mean, Image and all the other publishers, including Action Lab, coming up with really interesting ideas. It's a good time. It's almost too good of a time because there are so many great books to choose from. So it's tough out there.
100%, man.
There you go, man. Well, we can wrap up. I know you got a busy day tomorrow, and I got a very early morning tomorrow at the new gig. Yes, so I have to get my sleep time, and I have to go read some old. I have to read some old Superman issues for this prose book thing I'm working on. Excellent. Good.
That hopefully when that comes out, I can come back on and be like, hey, man.
Of course.
So we also have to have the powwow after Star Trek Discovery Season 2 as well. We have to.
Oh, definitely. Oh my God, when it's up and running.
Maybe do a triple threat or a quadruple threat where it's like you, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Ashley.
That would be great. I'm certainly for it.
Can you imagine that episode? Oh my God!
Well, again, you guys scared me when you're like, we don't know if we're going to do a final episode. I'm like, you've got to do a final episode of Discovery. My God.
Oh man. Yeah. So I remember. So just to let the listeners in. So we were on a plane flying to Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. The exact time that Star Trek Discovery, the finale landed. And then the very next day, it was like, I don't know if we're going to do a review because we're really tired. And yeah, you did text me. You were like, you have to do a review.
Well, it's like writing a mystery novel and never doing the final chapter. It's like, come on, man. Yep. You got to,
Well, it's a little different for the YouTube model, but I understand your comparison.
But you did, and that's good. And no, I like I said, I ever disappointed, but ever the optimist.
Me too.
I certainly, yeah. Let's hope for the best in season 2, and I truly hope that Alex Kurtzman talking a big game when it comes to Trek. So no, I would love to have you and Ash and Robert together, and we could do a foursome and really hash things out. Rob's the chess master. We're all just he's our Bobby Fischer. We're all just like, okay, whatever you say, Rob, and I mean that in the positive chess way, not the crazy way. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like yeah.
He's
not going to punch a Russian in a back room.
He's
somewhere.
our Boris Spassky, if that's better. Or who's the? I forget the guy who played Deep Blue.
Oh God, I couldn't even tell you.
There you go.
I'm terrible in Jeopardy.
Well, get your sleep. But Jupiter Jet.
But you asked me a Star Trek question, and I'm there.
Attaboy. Yes. All right. Good deal. So yes, congratulations on Jupiter Jet. It is.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. The volume is out. Get your store to order it if you haven't already, and enjoy a great all ages adventure with very positive characters, but really fun all ages action that the whole family will enjoy. And I say that
that's right,
sincerely. So
and you can tell your whole family that your book is also in Brian Michael Bendis's library, and they'll be like, "Huh?
Who?
Yeah, who?
Exactly."
And you'll be like, "The guy writing Superman." Shut up, Ma.
Jason, good to talk to you, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
There you go, Jason Inman, Jupiter Jet. It's available now. Hope you enjoyed today's Word Balloon Unconventional. It was brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much, League, for your support via Patreon. If you enjoy Word Balloon and would like to support the show and subscribe, go to patreon.com/wordballoon. Word Balloon is also brought to you by In Stock Trades and InStockTrades.com. Let's look at some of the new books that are available this week in Stock Trades. Ex Machina, the complete series. Good Lord, what a great story, man. Brian K. Vaughan, Tony Harris. Truly one of my absolute favorites. 50% off. It's just $75 at InStockTrades.com. You can get the Marvel Masterworks Captain America Volume 10, and this is a great hunk of Jack Kirby, not only doing the art, but doing the writing as well. It includes the Captain America Bicentennial Battles, which was such a great Marvel Treasury book back in the day. It's a crazy story, but it is so Kirby at like his absolute peak. This is 312 pages. It also collects Captain America 193 through 200, the third annual as well. Just really amazing stuff. But that Bicentennial Battle story, an incredible 80-page story that really was a wonderful salute to the country in the Kirby style. 50% off. It's just $37.50. There's Superman Blue, Volume 1. Dan Jurgens, Ron Frenz, Carl Kiesel, Stuart Immonen, another great buddy. These are wonderful creators, man. Scott Eden is on this book, David Michelini, Tom Grummett, Louise Simonson, John Bogdanov, Sean Chen. They're all in here. It includes stories from Superman 122 through 125, The Adventures of Superman 545 through 547, Action 732 through 734, Superman the Man of Steel 67 through 69, and the 9th Superman Annual. This was back when it was weekly and everything was happening. It's 42% off, just $14.49 at InStockTrades.com. Check out more of the great deals waiting for you at InStock Trades. Again, don't forget, if your orders are $50 or more, you'll receive free shipping. Great books at great prices, InStockTrades.com. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon Unconventional today. More great conversation coming in just a day or two. I've got a couple of these unconventionals that I wanted to release again to kind of give you that feel of San Diego Comic-Con during Comic-Con week. Whether you're there, this might be good road music for you as you're traveling to the show, or also, again, if you feel left out, don't worry. All access at Word Balloon Unconventional. There are always seats available, as you know, and don't worry, there's no special passes needed. Everybody's welcome through the red ropes. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, more Word Balloon Unconventional coming in a day or two. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2018.